And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, February 10th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Chris Spags. We are brought to you by DraftKings Pick6. We've got a 9-game DraftKings slate, a 10-game FanDuel slate, a lot of questionable tags that are going to change this slate in a big way over the next 2 hours. So you're right where you need to be because for the next 3 hours, we at Stokastic.com will be covering all of your NBA DFS needs. So go nowhere, at least until 7 o'clock when we switch this over to playback exclusively. Now hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. Spags, how was your weekend?
It's good. It was a good Super Bowl in terms of getting one nice little playoff best ball outcome. Picked up like 2,500 on drafters. So shout
Nice.
out them. They're not a sponsor of the show, but playoff best ball is one of those things I just don't get a lot of joy from. So to win money doing it when not paying attention is, of course, how it's going to go. This slate today for the NBA, we're going to have to pay a lot of attention, and it is chaotic. I actually did a little control F on the injury report a couple hours ago. Over 60 guys marked questionable on the slate today between all the games. So as we know for DFS, the most important thing is absence of minutes, absence of players, and the opportunity that creates. There's going to be a lot of opportunity here today, guys. So we're going to have some fun on a $5 DraftKings tournament day. What could be better?
It is a deep and thorough questionable list today, and we're gonna break down as much as we possibly can for right now. Live before lock, we'll get a little bit of it. Greg and I will get a little bit of it on playback, but for now, we got to get into it. And the first one is a pretty big Q tag. Minnesota Timberwolves, 9.5 point dogs in Cleveland, 230 total. They're already without Dante DiVincenzo. They're without Julius Randle. Q tag Mike Conley, Q tag Anthony Edwards, and these are real Q tags because both of these guys missed their previous game. We've got about 15% ownership coming into Naz Reid. Everybody else is 10 or below. Assuming everybody is in, how do you expect to handle this Minnesota team? Because they are not in a very good spot.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I do like Anthony Edwards a good amount conceptually without having Julius Randle in. He has been a player that gets the usage up a little bit more. Actually jumps about 6.5% usage, goes to about a 37.8% usage rate overall without Randle and without DiVincenzo on the court. So his status being in is really important. Cleveland, I thought one thing that stuck out on Friday, and it's one game, doesn't matter that much, but a depleted Washington team. Jordan Poole went nuts against Cleveland. They just did not defend him well.
Yeah.
And obviously kind of a similar player in Anthony Edwards, high usage guys, talked about expect him to have if he does play about a 38% usage rate. Total's not too bad here, though it does feel like maybe an ant not playing total with them being about 9.5 points as an underdog on the road. But if he keeps it competitive, it's probably because Anthony Edwards had an outlier day, much like Poole did there. So I like Ant if he plays, getting him only 7% of my top 150 lineups, the sim I just ran. But I think at a low ownership, like he'd be worth a shot. If he doesn't go, it's then you're getting some decent values here. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I believe, went for 40 fantasy points over the weekend without Edwards. Dillingham kind of didn't work out in that spot. He would probably need Conley to not be in to have his true upside, but it would look good, or at least interesting, without Edwards. And maybe Cleveland half-assing it heading into the All-Star break. And if you let Washington hang in there, I feel like my antenna went up a little bit from that one on Friday. That was a weird game on Friday.
What if we get no Edwards, no Conley? Obviously, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to get a bit of a bump. Who else gets the biggest benefit? Is that Jalen Clark at 3,700? Terrible per minute guy, but shooting guard, small forward eligible. Is that Dillingham? Is that somebody else? What do we do if we lose them both again?
I think if we lose them both, I would expect Alexander Walker and Dillingham to get the biggest boost here. I would get Jade McDaniels a good amount more. He does seem to gain without Randall in general, and then having some more usage out of the lineup, he's going to pick up a good amount here with him playing mid 30s minutes for the most part. I think you get more Naz Reid. I think you get more Gobert. It's just when you lose a guy like Anthony Edwards, who again, if he plays, I expect him to take like 38% usage or so, probably a little bit less, but like in that range. That opens up so many possessions for these guys, and if they hang in there, it's because you probably had a few of them have an outlier day. I don't think you just get one winner there. I think you can get a bunch of guys who look like better plays at semi values, if not, that 3K, minimum value guy or minimum salary guy that we always look for on these slates.
Is there anything else you want to touch on here for Minnesota?
No, I think you covered the Jalen Clark thing well in the strategy show this morning. Him playing a lot of minutes seems possible. I just don't think he's like the most compelling player overall, but shooting well in the year with 64% true shooting, whatever that means for a guy who hasn't done a whole lot. But I think really Edwards being in looks good if he does go, like as a low owned play, and if he's out, everybody looks a lot better.
Then we go to the Cleveland side, and we do have some injury news there as well. Isaac Okoro and Dean Wade still out. Max Strus is questionable for this one, which might matter. What I can say is that there's absolutely no ownership coming into Cleveland. 19% in total. That is I don't know, tied for fourth lowest. There's a couple teams sub 20, so they all kind of look the same. 6% to Jared Allen, 4% to Donovan Mitchell. Essentially no ownership to newly minted Cleveland Cavalier DeAndre Hunter, who will be making his debut tonight. Let's just say Strus is in. Are you getting to anything from Cleveland?
No, not meaningfully. I mean, I'm getting above the field ownership on Ty Jerome and Max Strus. Of course, Ty Jerome, my boy. But at this point, there's really not a compelling reason to play him with this roster having fleshed out, having Hunter being added. But I'm getting him at 7%, whatever. I can see that in a 150 set. Getting Max Strus at 5%, which is technically 2x the field, but really not getting anybody else here more than 2%. So the Cavs to me don't look that appealing. Minnesota, not a high paced team, certainly a quality defense on paper. Probably a little bit better, honestly, for not having Randall in at this point. So for Cleveland, I'm not surprised about getting these guys. They're all priced pretty aggressively as well. But yeah, like they're a team that exists on the slate, as you could say for them.
Do you think anything will change if Max Strus is out?
No, I mean, you're going to get a few more minutes, for Jalen Tyson, a few more. I mean, Hunter can't really play that much more, I would guess. Maybe I'd get a few stabs at Hunter because he's been pretty good on the year going back to Atlanta. 24% usage rate guy, even though that's going to fall. I'll keep that rate as it is and hope he kind of gets some usage for himself in this new situation. I think Hunter would come closer to playable, maybe some value on Merrill or Tyson, but I don't think it becomes like a great play if you got Strus out.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be creating all that much value if Strus ends up leaving. You bump, Jerome's minutes, Merrill's minutes, Tyson's minutes, Craig Porter might get a run, and I think it all just ends up not really mattering all that much. Strus just not that kind of guy that is going to create anything too crazy. Do we have any bets on the Cavs right now on the portfolio EV tool? We certainly don't. Only Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell are showing up with something in between 0 and 1 OddsShopper rating. That's probably not what we're looking for. Now on the Timberwolves side, we do have two separate OddsShopper ratings. One is under 6.5 rebounds for Jaden McDaniels. One is over 9.5 points for Mike Conley. McDaniels at ESPN bet, Conley at FanDuel. So if you're looking for bets, maybe go that way. The Atlanta Hawks are 5.5 point dogs in Orlando, 221 total. We've got another incredibly low owned team. Hawks are actually slightly less owned than the Cavs. 6% to Terrence Mann, 5% to Okongwu, 4% to Dyson Daniels, and 1 or 0 to everybody else. Are you finding anything here appealing for Atlanta in a pace down spot against a really good defense?
No, I feel like you're leading the witness there a little bit with that, but yeah, I don't think it's a great spot. So Trae Young really doesn't gain enough from having guys like, Hunter and guys like Jalen Johnson out of the lineup. His rates stay pretty close to similar. In fact, it's a little bit less sort of the assist upside. So it's not really a lot to love there at his price tag for me at the very least. He's going to be 1% owned by the field. So I think that's your biggest case for him. I'm getting a little bit more in the field of Dyson Daniels, who does gain more, gets to about a 20% usage rate without some of the guys out of the Hawks rotation who are no longer there, including Bogdanovic. 23% assist rate as well for Dyson Daniels. So again, increase in usage, increase in assist rate. You can take some shots, but that's it for me. Getting 9% Dyson Daniels, 4% of Okongwu now. Really not a lot to love versus Orlando. And as Josh mentioned, it is a pace down or a low pace matchup, defensively sound matchup. A lot of big loss of possessions as well. So I think for Atlanta, it just feels like the kind of team DFS would tell you to mostly ignore. But Dyson Daniels, I think, getting a little bit there, I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't have much that I want to point out. Like, as always, you can always get Trae Young. It's fine. He has a ceiling. I don't expect today to be that day. I don't really think that anybody looks all that good. They're integrating George Niang. They're integrating Terrence Mann. They're integrating Karis LeVert. It's a lot going on here. No Bogdanovic, no DeAndre Hunter. So lots of changes here for Atlanta, but I don't think they're leading us to interesting things from a DFS perspective. We just don't really have it here, unfortunately. 2 OddsShopper rating on Vit Krejci under 1.5 threes. Minus 105 on DraftKings right now. Orlando is a slightly different team. They are getting some ownership. about 17% to Paolo Banchero, about 20% to Franz Wagner, and then 5 or less to everybody else. How do you separate Banchero and Wagner, or don't you?
So I'm getting a lot less Banchero here, which does scare me a little bit, but the rates do sort of support, I think, Franz over Banchero, where, Franz has been a little bit more of an efficient player, higher true shooting, 57% compared to 51% for Banchero. The assist rate for Franz, 24% compared to 28%. So that one, I think, would favor Banchero a little bit technically, but they're like close enough overall, and that's core time without Suggs. I think for Wagner, the price tag is appealing, but Banchero's close enough. I'm not sure why I'm this low on Banchero as I am, but the field's like not making it really a reason where I want to correct myself and get more of Banchero, even though I favor Franz, because the field's going to play Banchero just as much. So I have 27% Franz. I have 4% Banchero. That feels like a pretty bad split, but I do have Franz projected for about 5 more fantasy points. So I feel kind of naked in that one, but I just don't think Banchero is as good of a play. Like Franz projects substantially better for me.
I have them dead even. It would be hard for me to separate them. 13% optimal to Franz, 12 to Banchero, both right at like 28% boom. They both don't have an MPE. They both basically have the same price. I don't have much separation between the two. I was a lot further ahead on Banchero earlier today, did a deep dive into rates, and now I have those guys basically dead similar. So the positionality of like what small forward looks like and what power forward looks like will probably dictate which one I actually get. I don't have a lean between the two. I do feel very comfortable in saying that I don't have any interest in the rest of Orlando.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I got like 5% of Kentavious Caldwell Pope, 4% of Jonathan Isaac. I think there's maybe some favorable betting markets on Isaac. Those might have evaporated though in the last hour since I checked. Besides that, though, really not a lot to like for Orlando in the spot, which is kind of crazy because it is a spot versus Orlando. But you guys would get the most stats: Banchero, Franz. So I would favor Franz. I think those guys are strong plays because more possessions, more opportunity for those guys to do the most they can.
All right, well, let's go to game number 3. San Antonio Spurs. Actually, let's check the magic in the portfolio EV tool. We don't want to leave anybody without good bets, you know? Well, if we skip a really good OddsShopper rating, I would feel pretty bad. And we did. Franz Wagner, under 1.5 threes made on FanDuel. 8 OddsShopper rating, 6.4% EV. Well, if you're not getting to Franz, that might make you feel a little bit better. If you are, there's a nice little hedge bet for you. That one's looking good. KCP under 1.5 as well at plus 102 is a 3 OddsShopper rating. We get San Antonio, 11-point favorites in Washington, 237 total. This is the 3rd fastest matchup on the day and currently the highest total. 10% ownership to Fox, 10% ownership to Wemby. Everybody else is below that. I don't have a single guy on this team in 10% optimal. I certainly have no problem getting 10% of Fox or Wemby, but they don't look special today, even in the best possible matchup.
Yeah, it's just the issue is that now having Fox in has changed the equation for this team enough where the rates are not supporting, Wemby being priced at that level. Obviously, they can hit an upside here. Wemby can block, Washington 10 times here, and it wouldn't be a shocker, and that could certainly, win the slate for you. The 10% ownership, I'm getting 1% Wemby. I'm getting, Fox is at 9%. I'm getting 1% of him. I think these guys are right now kind of priced for their former lives before they became lovers, and now they're forced to coexist on a team together, and they're unfortunately just not helping each other out with the usage pulling away. Fox, a lot of assist upside as well. 37% assist rates getting traded. And also, Stephon Castle coming off the bench is now gunning in a way that he did not all year. He's had like a 30% usage rate in court time without these guys. So like it's become a different situation, and it's not supporting Wemby or Fox, I think, being priced where they are, even in the softest matchup possible.
Yeah, I got to 16% of Wemby, 4% of Fox, essentially nothing else. I wouldn't have minded some shares of Castle, but he's still 5,400 coming off the bench. It's not like he's got a great price tag or anything like that. So I'm just relatively limited here. I don't mind getting to Wemby, and I think by the time we get there, we're going to have enough value that 11K isn't all that crazy, but we still have SGA, we still have Jokic, we've got this loaded 8K, 9K range. Even in this matchup against Washington, I just don't have much of these guys.
Yeah, I think you need somebody to be out, I think, at this point for San Antonio to look like over the top good. But the price will come down. It'll find its depth. Probably not before the All-Star break, though.
Now, on the Washington side, this team, quite new look, Washington Wizards. Keyshawn George is available. No Chris Middleton, no Alex Sarr, no Marcus Smart, no Anthony Gill. We have 10% ownership coming into Bilal Coulibaly, 15 to Bub Carrington, 15 to Keyshawn George, 15 to Rashawn Holmes, 35 to Jordan Poole. Let's just start with Poole since he's the most owned guy. I think he looks good. It's $7,100 price tag. There's no Kuzma around anymore. No one's really fighting him for shots, but I feel like he's kind of at the tippy top of where his price should be. 35% ownership feels a little high. I got 20. That makes me feel pretty good. He definitely looks like the best Wizard, but I think he's getting a little bit too much love.
Yeah, look, so I'm a little spooked by what happened over the weekend, where on Friday I had so much Jordan Poole. I had him in like 90% of my lineups. Ended up being one of the best plays in the slate. He put up 60 fantasy points, and he really like beat up Cleveland in a way that I didn't think he had in him. He's averaged 1.35 fantasy points per minute at just shy of 60% true shooting in court time, without Sar, without Kuzma, without Joval. So basically losing the high usage centers, losing Kuzma, who gets his shots up on the wing. He's averaged 1.35 fantasy points a minute, 35.5% usage, 27% assist rate. He's been the best version of Jordan Poole. And I would say even better than the Golden State version, who is similarly good true shooting, similarly high usage. It's only been 330 possessions, so it's not the big enough sample size to really like lock in on. I think he's worth the Fields ownership, and I'm technically above it, getting him in 55% of my lineups today. I think if they hang in this game, keep it competitive. And San Antonio, despite this new team, I don't think is showing they're like blowing teams out. They're hanging in, they're winning, whatever, about as much as you'd expect, but like they're not world beaters here. So anybody could blow out Washington, but I think if they hang in, it's on Poole. So I like Poole a good amount.
We did have a 6 OddsShopper rating on under 24.5 points for Wemby at plus 120. That's an interesting one for today if you're at least a little bit of a believer in the Wizards. What actually stands out to you for the rest of the Wizards? Because we've got Koulibaly, Carrington, George, and Holmes all getting like 10 to 15% ownership. Do you like one more than the others? Do you like somebody else, potentially like a Corey Kispert? What else stands out to you from the Wizards?
I'm a little bit above on Koulibaly, and I would think that with the ownership going to Poole's way, Koulibaly, to a lesser extent, Brogdon, I think would be your direct leverage where if Poole fails. I mean, on Saturday, it was granted after it was playing a tough Cleveland game on a back-to-back, but Poole came out. They brought Brogdon in a few times. Like that was kind of the way they jerked Poole around on that one, with him maybe not being the most effective versus Atlanta. You could see that happen again, I guess, if like San Antonio just boat races Washington. But I think Koulibaly is an okay play. I think Carrington's an okay play. I think Holmes is an okay play. But really, my biggest stand here is Poole. I have him at 41 fantasy points today, so Poole is like a pretty big gap ahead of everybody else in the Wizards for me.
In terms of like how he grades out, I think it's a giant gap. I have 2x the field of Keyshawn George. I'm about neutral on Holmes and Carrington and a little lighter on Koulibaly. I thought I would get some Kispert. Didn't happen. Don't mind it. I have a random Malcolm Brogdon share as well, which is something fun. Top 2 portfolio EV plays for the Wizards right now. Under 32.5 PRA on Jordan Poole, 4 OddsShopper rating at Caesars. Under 3.5 threes made at FanDuel, 3 OddsShopper rating. So, with Poole being chalk, if you want to do a bit of a life hedge and grab 2 unders on Poole, it might not be the worst move in the world because the value for those bets, they're out there right now. You can scoop them up. You can scoop them up so easily because you can just get the portfolio EV tool for free for a week. If you click the link in the description of this video, we've got a trial. You can sign up. If you've never signed up before, you've never taken a market-based approach to beating sportsbooks and pick'em sites, you can do that right now by clicking the link. We have odds boost calculators, parlay builders, shop around the odds to the best sports books that you have, go through all of our old historical data, try to find the best angles for yourself. You can mass bet alerts on your phone. This is perfectly mobile setup for you guys. Everything you could possibly want on the sports betting and pick'em side is available to you with the Portfolio EV tool. You can try it out for no cost for a week if you click the link in the description. Oh, watching this would be, I'd rather get waterboarded than watch the Charlotte Hornets 3.5-point dogs in Brooklyn, 211 total. This Hornets team, at least they're getting their center back. Now, Moussa Diabate might have already been better than him, but that's a conversation for a different day. Moussa Diabate is questionable today. Josh Green is questionable. Nick Smith is questionable. Isaiah Wong is questionable. No Brandon Miller, Josh Okogie, no Mark Williams, who, while he isn't on the Lakers, he's also not active for the Hornets. This is a mess. It might look even more insane With everybody in, do you get anything?
So I'm getting a good amount of Nick Smith Jr. right now, which feels like the odd one to have a stand on here. But he's shooting guard, small forward. He's 4K. He's projected to play 30 minutes. So I get why I would get there. But I do generally, when you have, Brandon Miller out, who's obviously out for the year, and, even Mark Williams out as well, I would generally want to get more LaMelo Ball, want to get more of Miles Bridges than these guys. But it's not happening a ton for me. Getting only 6% of LaMelo Ball, getting 1.5% of Bridges, and I normally get a lot of Bridges. So I'm surprised, but it is a down pace spot, low total spot for these teams. It looks ugly. Obviously, Brooklyn's defense is not anything to write home about. Neither is Charlotte's, but really just 103.8 implied points for Charlotte. Nothing looks that good to me. And Diabate eye injury missed, part of last game because of it. If he's out, then Nurkic, I think, becomes like a really compelling play. But Nick Smith is not, and I'm getting him so much.
So I got 14% of Nick Smith. I didn't really get much else of the Hornets, but these Q tags will matter. I mean, we've got 75 minutes that are questionable. And if Musa Diabate happens to be out for this game and we get a $3,900 Yusuf Nurkic making his Hornets debut, there are a lot of ways that's going to end up going, but I don't know how you don't play all of him. Like, he's just, even in 20 minutes, that's going to look amazing. And I think you probably have to go a little bit more aggressive than that.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. He would be the value play you cram in, but that Joe Val kind of value play, or maybe the minutes don't get all the way there. And if he doesn't go nuts, then somehow that's how the chalk fails. But that's the game we play here, of course, in the NBA.
Is. Now, if Nick Smith and or Josh Green are out, that's going to really open up different things, whether it's Daquan Jeffries, Elfrid Payton, Salon. I don't know for sure. We kind of just need to see what that lineup's going to look like. I don't think anything's going to happen that makes me think LaMelo looks amazing. I don't think anything is going to look incredible here unless it's Diabate that's out. If that's the case, we're going to be very interested in how available Yusuf Nurkic is for this one, because he should be pretty well rested at this point.
Yeah, and it's only Taj beside him at this point, and they don't really want to play Taj if they can avoid it.
Under 7.5 assists for LaMelo Ball, sitting out there with a 3 OddsShopper rating, 3% EV on DraftKings. Not bad if you're not going to be getting to him. And then we get to Brooklyn. Barely a basketball team at this point. Nick Claxton available. D'Angelo Russell questionable. No more than 8% ownership going to anybody from Brooklyn. That's either Claxton or Keon Johnson. I got to 10% of Keon Johnson and less than that of everybody else. I'm not shocked to get scattered Brooklyn Nets. There's not a single dude that I look at when I see this team and think, oh, I can't wait to get a lot of him.
Yeah, my high guy is D'Angelo Russell, which is not surprising. He's been still very good in court time without, Ben Simmons, who's obviously gone now, Cam Thomas, who I assume will come back at some point. But really the issue is like the minutes just aren't there for him. They did the same thing last game for Brooklyn where like it was versus the Heat and Brooklyn still won the game. But basically like they were starting to make a run, pulled even, and then they took Russell out and sat him until like the last minute of the game for no particular reason. And then they still won. So it's like, all right, I guess it's it. But they're like tanking. Brooklyn has been actively tanking this entire time. And now they have a full roster. So you really shouldn't play a ton of guys. But I got 6% of Russell, got 4% of Claxton. Stokastic Sims before the show seems to give me a lot of Nick Claxton in the top ROI lineups, which I'll just highlight here. I don't really have a strong feel for him, but that did stand out. These guys all seem appropriately owned. Nobody is a great play. It's an ugly spot, but two shitty defenses. So if somebody gets hot, they certainly can get hot.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't get anything more than 10% of Keon Johnson. I doubt I get anybody in any sort of bulk, but I don't know. Something's going to come out of this game that's pretty disgusting, and you're going to wish you had it, but I don't have a great feel for who that's going to be. This is as bad of a basketball game as you can get. Lowest pace on the slate, lowest total on the slate. Disgusting. Truly disgusting. Both of these offenses are abysmal. LaMelo Ball is like the only thing out there with a true pulse. It's nuts.
Yeah. Nurkic, though, Nurkic gonna get some boards. Nurkic might put up a double-double even if Diabate plays.
Dude, if he's 3,900, we're going to be playing the living shit out of him, which sucks so much. Boston, Miami, better basketball game, at least. I don't know how much better it is for DFS. There is not a team less owned than the Miami Heat, and it's not like Boston's rolling in it, but they might be. Celtics are 5.5-point favorites in Miami, 216 total. This is the second lowest total of the day, but the big but here, Jaylen Brown, questionable. Jason Tatum, questionable. 14% ownership coming into Al Horford. I have 22. He is 3,900 now, power forward center. I like Horford regardless. I think one of Tatum or Brown is going to be sitting based on where this line is. I don't have anything for Boston yet, but depending on which one of those guys are out or both, this could look very different by the time we get to this game's lock.
Yeah, this one matters a lot. The total, honestly, with Boston even being only a 5.5 point favorite on the road at Miami, feels like at least one of Tatum or Brown missing. But I don't know. That would be my gut read on it. But I would say if you do get Tatum and Brown out, one of them out, everything looks better basically for Boston at that point. You're losing a really ball dominant scorer who contributes assists, rebounds. So really keep that in mind here with us not knowing at this point if these guys go. They supposedly did both miss shoot around, so that would lead me to believe they're probably not going to be going today. Bad luck to not go in Miami too. Just show up for the game at the very least. Play hungover if you have to. But Al Horford getting him at 15%, that's fine right now. Derek White getting him at 7, getting Porzingis at 6. It'll be a whole different ball game if Brown and or Tatum are out. But as it is right now, a little bit of these guys and no big stands.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mention either. Drew Holiday is already out. So if you lose one of these guys, like you're going to be able to bump the other one. You're bumping usage to White. You're bumping usage to Porzingis. Peyton Pritchard can play a little bit more. Sam Hauser plays a little bit more. Luke Cornett plays a little bit more. Al Horford at 3,900 plays a little bit more. Like everything looks a little bit better for Boston, but we need to know who's out. If it's both of them, Boston's going to end up looking very different than they do now. If it's one, things are going to look a lot better, but nothing crazy, I think.
Yeah, same page.
4 OddsShopper rating on under 17.5 PRA on Al Horford. That doesn't make me feel great. Minus 120. Under 8.5 points for Al Horford has a 3 OddsShopper rating. So the market isn't believing in the betting lines of Al Horford, but I am believing in the price tag of Al Horford. That's the big thing we need to remember. Don't let those bets be indicators of DFS. Like, if Al Horford were 6,900 today, then you just wouldn't play him no matter how good the bets look. Because Al Horford's 3,900, he's a good value, even if the bets don't look great. There's no real relationship between those two things because price drives everything in DFS. Don't forget it. Miami. The Miami Heat sans Jimmy Butler. I have a Q tag on Tyler Hero. He's got a bum tummy. Nikola Jovic is available for this one. 6% ownership to Hero. Nobody else is 4 above, but Hero being questionable will affect things, and we get to see what Andrew Wiggins looks like in the Miami Heat uniform. But I don't think I'm going to be having much of this in Miami team unless we lose Hero.
Yeah, it's tough to love it right now. It's also tough to love it, honestly, for me, even if Hero's out, because you've got a lot of uncertainty there. The rotation, obviously, you expect Wiggins to get good minutes, but what the rates look like, we haven't seen it yet for Miami.
I'm going to stop you right now. Tyler Hero is out.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so Tyler Hero's out. Obviously,
very relevant for this particular conversation, so I figured we might as well just take that news.
So, look, I hate Rozier. I know you love Rozier. He gets more minutes here, but now with having these guys in the rotation, it just feels like you're not getting as much of a value as you would have pre-trade. Obviously, if Hero were out, you would open up a ton of usage. No matter what, you are opening about 28% usage, 27% assist rate, 1.1 fantasy points per minute from Hero being out. My immediate guess would be Wiggins now enters comfortably to at least the same usage he got for Golden State. I probably wouldn't boost it up too much. Rozier will look a little bit better. Rozier's been so bad on the year with his 0.8 fantasy points a minute, though, that I'm not dying to get there. But he is cheap enough under 5K. Duncan Robinson gets a few more minutes now. He'll look a little bit better. Everybody here looks a little bit better, Josh, but are you seeing a big winner potentially for having none of that Hero usage and opportunity?
That's a good question. I just slapped a couple minutes on these dudes just to check it out. I think Terry Rozier is going to look pretty good, assuming he just starts. 4,800 point guard, shooting guard eligible. Like, even if you want to give him 30 minutes, I think that's probably like 28.5 fantasy points at 4,800, 5.9x salary. I think Terry Rozier is going to go from unowned to pretty heavily owned now. Don't really think it matters too much for Ware or Bam in any like real way. Obviously, there's usage to go around, but you know what I mean. Duncan Robinson at 4,200 probably plays a little bit more now. Because his minutes are all over the place, but it kind of just makes sense that he would soak some of it up. Your boy, Davion Mitchell, could conceivably play now. I don't think that'll matter. Whether it's him or Alec Burks that it's picking up the extra run. Hard to do anything with it unless you knew what Burks' minutes would be. Larson probably grabs a couple extra minutes, but I think it's Rozier to a lesser degree, Wiggins and Duncan Robinson as the three main benefits for Miami.
Yeah, it's weird losing Hawk as a hero now. Like Miami's just got enough guys, and on paper the matchup is still not going to be a great one, even if you have your Brown and Tatum out. So a little bit of a tough scene here where you're not getting the crazy value you'd expect from having not hero, and also Hawk is too not playing his usual run of mid-20s minutes.
Yeah, I guess he could conceivably get some more run here, but they seem to just fucking hate him. So I don't know. We'll go to Golden State now. The Warriors are 7-point favorites in Milwaukee, 230 total. And if you're asking yourself, why in the world are the Warriors favorites in Milwaukee? It's because Giannis Antetokounmpo is not playing today. Pat Connaughton is also questionable, as is Damian Lillard. So if you think it's crazy now for Milwaukee, wait. We'll start on the Warriors side. Steph Curry, questionable, and 25% owned right now. That will have some impact. 15% ownership to Buddy Hield, 10 to Podziemski, single digits to everybody else. What do you want to do with Steph here? Because if he's in, he pretty clearly looks good.
Yeah, I'm getting 10% Steph right now. I didn't really mess with the rates at all because I kept Butler where he is because basically he and Wiggins kind of the same usage, a little more assist upside for Butler with his rates on the year. But I think it should end up being pretty similar in terms of the, what the usage looks like for these guys integrating Butler. At least as things stabilize. So like, I don't get a ton of Curry here. I'm actually getting a lot more of Buddy Hield with his rates being kind of where they are and him playing starter level minutes. Projected to play 28 minutes by Stokastic today. But yeah, I'm getting 26% of Hield, 12% of Podziemski, and 10% of Steph. It scares me to play not a lot of Steph here because if you get Lillard in, I mean, the defense is going to be awful on him. You get Lillard out, the defense is going to be even worse, and you might be getting Kevin Porter Jr. / Ryan Rollins doing minutes. And like, I love Ryan Rollins conceptually, but he's not able to guard Steph at any real way. So yeah, not having Steph with the field here is spooky, but it feels like really high owned for Steph at 25% ownership. And this total too, I know Josh, you do your own totals and stuff like that. Feels like the total with them being about a 7-point favorite on the road feels like a Lillard not playing total for me right now.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Lillard out just based on where the line is right now, which will be an interesting dynamic as we get there. I'm with you. Steph feels like a hair over-owned. Nothing too crazy. Clearly looks good. The matchup is one that I'm looking to attack, but I only have 14%, so I am also under the field. I am 2xing Buddy Hield, so you and I are in the same boat there. 4,800, shooting guard eligible. Just a great point per dollar option today. I'm also more than 2xing Brandon Podziemski. I have 25% of him, 4,900, point guard, shooting guard eligible. Minutes have been up lately. Obviously, he's going to look very different if Steph ends up out, but I'm getting to a lot more of Hield and Podziemski than I am of Steph, and then I have a little bit of Moses Moody and a little bit of Draymond.
Yeah, no, I think we're a little bit more in lockstep than I would have thought here. I just don't get how the field's getting this much stuff with the projection being where it is. But yeah, it's a high total and it's not a great Milwaukee situation. It's definitely not the Bucks defense of yore that won them titles.
Let's see if we have any interesting Warriors bets. Alex Rodriguez and Mark Laurie are going to be the owners of the Timberwolves.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, lucky them. Nothing good on the Warriors side. One OddsShopper rating to Draymond right now. So let's get to the main event of this evening. Milwaukee Bucks, the only team projected for more than 100% ownership on DraftKings, and it's 166. 20% ownership to Dame. We don't even know if he's playing. He's questionable. But at 9,200, looks pretty damn good. 50% ownership to Bobby Portis. 6,300, power forward, center eligible. And he didn't even start the last time they played. 75% ownership coming into a $5,300 Kyle Kuzma who did start and finally got that price bump from yesterday's 3,800. Great work there, DraftKings. 10% ownership to Gary Trent. Let's get Kuzma out of the way. What do you do here, assuming he starts again?
So 76% for Kuzma feels like a lot. Like, I don't even know where people are getting the projection from. I assume looking at the longer term sample size of him, but he just wasn't the same player in Washington this year. Obviously going to look a little better for him as things go in Milwaukee with getting some higher quality shots, I would guess. Right now, he's a little bit lower in usage, a little bit upper in assist rate, a little bit lower in, actually a little bit up in rebound rate, a little bit lower in assist rate. He's not doing a whole lot more so far in the limited sample size for Milwaukee. So I don't get why he's projected so highly here. He's going to play good minutes, I'm sure. Today, I have him at 0.9 fantasy points per minute, so I'm getting him in 45% of my lineups. The field's projected to play 76% Kuzma, which over the weekend he was 3,800 or whatever. Like, yeah, play him then. Now with the price tag being kind of back to normal, I don't think he's like a lock button play. I'd rather have Portis at that same ownership, and I do have Portis in nearly every lineup, and not the same for Kuzma.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards Portis as well. I do think Kuzma looks awesome. 75% owned doesn't feel spot on. I mean, he's 6,200 on FanDuel and still 50% owned. Those things feel high. He's clearly one of the better point per dollar plays today just because of his role and where his price is right now. They probably want to get him integrated. There's no Giannis. So, like, I get it, but I'm way under that 75% number. I will be light on Kyle Kuzma, but I am dead neutral on Bobby Portis, which terrifies me with him coming off the bench. But he's obviously very likely to close. They're not big fans of Andre Jackson.
It's shocker because people told you, I think, that he was going to be the difference maker for the Bucks, and it seems like no. In fact, they'd rather even play Kyle Kuzma over Andre Jackson.
Yes, they will much prefer that. So give me all the Portis. I'm happy to do it. I'm gonna have some Kuzma, but it's scary. Dame looks good. I have no problem if he's in, but I do think he's going to be out, which is going to dramatically change what we get from Milwaukee. And then I don't mind Gary Trent at 3,900. Minutes are there. They're shorthanded, small forward, power forward, or shooting guard, small forward, rather. I like it as a value. But if there's no Dame, is it Ryan Rollins season? Is it Kevin Porter Jr. season? Is it AJ Green season? What do we do?
Yeah, so that's tough because, like, again, I like Ryan Rollins, but it does feel like it doesn't have that full Doc Rivers trust you need to have, where he doesn't get an unlimited run of minutes even when nobody else is available. We've seen him get jerked around for Delon Wright before, get jerked around for AJ Johnson before. So, like, I would worry about him getting jerked around for Kevin Porter, who is a guy clearly wears out his welcome everywhere he goes, including in his own relationships, it seems. But it also seems like he is a guy that can fill it up and maybe engender goodwill and earn time pretty fast. And you've been willing to give the hook to Ryan Rollins for Delon Wright. You're probably willing to give him the hook for Kevin Porter Jr. So how many minutes can he play? I think it'd be the question. If you got a Kevin Porter Jr. start, wheels up, I would play him basically in every lineup at that point. But if Rollins starts, I wouldn't have the same confidence I've had in the past on Rollins. And frankly, like, they've been guys like they shouldn't play over Rollins who they have before. So that sucks for Rollins, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't have a great feel of what they're going to do here. My guess would be Rollins over KPJ in a starting lineup. Don't know that for sure. I like the idea of preferring Kevin Porter Jr. because he's $500 more expensive. It just might make your swaps a little bit easier if we get the news at 6:30 that Dame's out, but we don't have a lineup. I would probably err on the side of KPJ to build my lineups. And then if it ends up being Rollins, my swaps will just be a little bit easier. If you go the opposite direction, it could get a little bit trickier because there will be 5 games locked before it. So something we want to pay attention to over the rest of this show, over Live Before Lock, and then on to playback when Greg and I will likely be dealing with this issue. Maybe we just get Dame in and none of it matters, but Milwaukee's looking pretty damn good today, or at least in some ways.
If Dame is in too, he's a pretty good play. Like, I have him in a third of my lineups, so it's a weird thing right now, but I do assume Dame doesn't play. Like, the total doesn't make any sense, I think, if Dame were going to play.
Folks, you can get $50 in Pick6 credits if you sign up using the link in the description and bet $5 on DraftKings Pick6. It's very, very easy to do. The link is in the description. You click it, you head on over, make your $5 bet. They're just going to give you $50 in Pick6 credits. Makes it very, very easy. It's a great way to build up a little bit more of your bankroll. Doesn't get any easier. If you want to sign up for something through Stokastic, you could probably end up with a month of our tools as well if you follow those links and all of the instructions at the top. So Jordan dropped the link in chat. All you got to do is click it to sign up. Or if you're a little weirder, you can use the one that's in the description of this video. But chat will make it very easy. You see the link, click it, sign up, follow the instructions on the top of the page. The New Orleans Pelicans are 17-point underdogs in Oklahoma City, 235 total. Pelicans are without Brandon Boston, Bruce Brown, Herb Jones, CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, and Kelly Olynyk. There's 20% ownership coming into Jose Alvarado, 5K point guard only. Then the rest of this team is in single digits. I have more of the Pelicans than I had originally expected. I am not excited about what I just said. What are you doing with this Pelicans team that is more than 2 touchdown underdogs against the Thunder?
Yeah, I'm on a similar page as you. I mean, look, like I agree, it's a spooky total to see when you're talking about more 2 touchdowns and a field goal and a total that they're an underdog on the road. But
Yeah.
Zion basically in court time without DeJounte, without McCollum, without Ingram. We're not talking about a big sample size, but Zion's put up over a 40% usage rate. I think of over a 40% assist rate. I mean, might be closer to 45%. I know the numbers right in front of me. I could pull them up. But he's averaged like 1.7 fantasy points per minute. So in this spot with Zion, if they stay competitive, it's probably because Zion had an outlier day. You have 43% usage, 41% assist rate, 15% rebound rate, 1.72 fantasy points per minute with the Pelicans guys, the high usage guys that are out today. I think it's worth the shot. And, the Thunder certainly are a team that can absolutely roll you. But if they've let some teams in that I feel like they shouldn't let teams hang in, and I think New Orleans at least has legit high level talent with Zion and Trey Murphy, as much as you want to believe in those guys. I think they are them. Alvarado as well, pretty big rate boost without the key guys as well, averages 1.1 fantasy points a minute, along with about 21% usage and a 34% assist rate. So it's a short shrift kind of Pelicans team at this point. And, the Thunder have sleepwalked some of these games before, even though eventually the talent catches up. Their ability to knock down open threes catches up. But if you get 4 quarters of run from the Thunder and from the Pelicans side, I think Zion probably smashed along the way.
So I have 25% of Alvarado. I've got 20% of Carlo Makovic, which is certainly a thing that's happening for me right now. He's been playing, so I guess I get it. They are very shorthanded. 12% of Jordan Hawkins, 10% of Zion. I even got 6% of Javonte Green and Trey Murphy. I'm going to hope that this recalibrates itself a little bit. I don't mind the Alvarado. The minutes are just sort of there. I don't mind the Hawkins, just with no Brandon Boston and no CJ. It makes some sense. Probably don't need 20% of Carlo Makovic, so let's hope that transitions out. But at least it's in a spot where I might be able to swap it out. I don't like the Pelicans all that much here today. They're facing the best defense in the league. These guys now have Hartenstein and Chet. This is a death sentence for most teams moving forward. I'm hoping I end up with a bit less of the Pelicans. They don't look as good as the amount of ownership that I have right now.
I like Zion. I like Alvarado. I think Murphy too projects well enough for me, even though I'm not getting him quite as much of this price tag and positionality. I'm more of a believer here as much as you can be in a team that's a 17 and change point dog on the road versus the best team in the NBA right now.
Yeah, boy, scary spot. Scary spot. Pelicans might just score like 72 points today. 6 OddsShopper rating under 23.5 points for Zion Williamson on FanDuel. It's the best one available and one of the best we've seen so far. How's that make you feel?
It is, and it's always so shitty when the market-based bets. If you something you're like, well, it is what it is. But I'm with you, like what you said before, like emotional hedge. Like I'm playing Zion, 20% of lineups, emotional hedge, take the bets and take some unders that are probably more mathematically viable.
If he sucks, then you feel a little bit better because you probably won your bet.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving named to the All-Star game in place of Anthony Davis.
Oh, there we go. Just honestly well deserved. Kyrie's been best version of Kyrie this year.
Yeah, no problem with it. OKC, 6% ownership to Jalen Williams is the most we have of anybody. These guys are basically fully unowned. I have 15% of Jalen Williams. I have 15% of Isaiah Hartenstein. I do not have much of this Oklahoma City team, though, and I'm not surprised by it. This feels like a situation where they're going to handle this one pretty easy, and Alex Dukas and Dylan Jones are going to get some run in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think with how much Pelicans I have or how many Pelicans I have in my exposure, I feel like maybe getting more OKC would make sense. But I'm low on all these guys. I got 1% of SGA, a little bit more than 1% of Wiggins, Dort. Basically got 4% of Hartenstein as my second most, at 8% of Jalen Williams. Technically put me above the field on him. Look, these guys were really great fantasy producers. Just going through their numbers now, like SGA's at 1.5 fantasy points a minute on the year. Jalen Williams is at 1.2. Holmgren's at 1.4. Hartenstein's at 1.2. That's all like really impressive and crazy. It's also why they're not great plays right now, because you have that entire rotation in, and Holmgren's minutes are a little bit limited, but he's still playing enough. So OKC looks like a great play. It's just that they're more than appropriately priced for now a fully staffed team. And frankly, you do have the blowout risk on their side as well that they just don't get there because you have too many good guys and really large total going in your favor.
We head to Dallas now. The Sacramento Kings are 1-point underdogs in Dallas, 236.5 total. This is the second highest total, the second fastest pace, but there's no ownership coming into the Kings because every one of their dudes is like the same dude. Call it 5% ownership to Levine, Murray, Sabonis, DeRozan, and Monk. No real ownership coming into Keon Ellis, who I do think looks mildly interesting, but these guys are all just 5%ers. I don't know how you pick between the Kings. They're all just going to play a ton of minutes. They're all pretty similar relative to salary. Do you have somebody that looks better to you?
I like Sabonis the most. He's been quietly the usage winner since they've added Levine, and that could certainly change because Levine, as Malik Monk pointed out in a social media post that went viral out there, or an interview rather, where like Levine has hit no shots, and they're like, we brought him in there, he's gonna hit some shots. He hasn't hit any shots so far. It's gonna change. You'd expect. They're probably getting the negative regression he was due on 63% true shooting on the year. But Sabonis has had 25% usage since Levine came in. The other guys are down a little bit, like Monk's at 25, also I guess a lower version of 25. Levine's at 23. DeRozan's at a rounded up 22. So basically, Sabonis has kind of consolidated usage for himself, at least so far. I think that bodes okay for him. So if I get 9% today on the slate, which is what I'm currently at, I feel pretty good about that. I don't think it's worth the big stand because we're talking small sample size stuff. And as I've said, like Levine will get better. But Levine, not as much of an assist guy as Fox, seems like he's not getting the Fox role. And if anything, he's getting a lesser version of a Chicago role while helping out the other Kings guys a little bit more than it might seem.
Yeah, I got 8% of Monk, 6 of Sabonis, 4 of Levine, 4 of Murray, 2 of DeRozan. It's just like a complete scattered who the hell knows, which is always the best way to do this. Dallas is slightly different. Now, we can't really talk about him because Max Christie is questionable. Dante Exum is questionable. PJ Washington is questionable. Dwight Powell out. Caleb Martin out. Derek Lively out. Anthony Davis out. Congrats to that trade. 10% ownership to PJ Washington. Don't know if he's playing. 15 coming into Daniel Gafford. At least you feel good about that one. Single digits to everybody else. But if Washington and Christie and Exum all end up out, this could look pretty crazy for Dallas. With everybody in, meh.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit less mad on this. I'm actually getting a lot of Daniel Gafford, getting 35% Gafford at his projection right now. I'm at 42 fantasy points compared to the 38 for Stokastic, so I'm definitely up on him. I've liked Gafford a lot throughout this run. He's averaged 1.22 fantasy points per minute on the year, projected to play almost 31 minutes today by Stokastic, so I think he's worth a shot versus, a guy in Sabonis who good center, good fantasy producer and all of that, but certainly not the kind of physical presence that Gafford could be sometimes. So I'll talk myself into a kind of surprisingly large stand on Gafford. I'm curious your thoughts on Max Christie. Obviously, he's a cute tack right now, as Josh mentioned. His rates, and we've now seen 3 games, he looks like a different player out there. It looks like they're actually treating him like a human being who's worth being on a basketball court as opposed to what the Lakers did, where he was just out there as a body. But he's at 21% usage so far, 12% rebound rate, 16% assist rate, been averaging about 1 and change fantasy points a minute. I'm at 0.97 today with those rates. He's looked like a new man compared to the Lakers. And I'm curious, I assume you're not buying in because it's like extra small sample size, but like really weird to see Christie now putting up 30 fantasy points in 3 straight games since this trade to a Mavs team that kind of feel like they've been hunting for a wing they could trust.
I'm going to assume the 68% true shooting in a Dallas uniform regresses back down to what he actually is. I mean, he's 8 of 12 from 3. Like, he's 8 of 19 from 2. By the way, -2 in his 94 minutes so far. So even the hot shooting isn't making it look any different. He's fine. I still got him at like 0.75 fantasy points per minute. I don't think that he is the rates that he's had so far. So I'm only interested in Christie if he's out because that's going to create something else for Dallas.
Okay, I would take the shot a little bit on him because he's still been a 61% true shooter on the year. Like, he's been good, and it feels like maybe getting some opportunity. Like, I agree, he has been running hot. But, at 5K, shooting guard, small forward, I'm kind of looking, I think, for those guys around 5K who have some upside because that price tag seems to be one I'm kind of being funneled to a lot. I think Christie's worth more than no ownership. I think people are kind of would blanch at it, but he's looked like a new player. Like, he's getting an opportunity. I think, granted, running very hot with it, but he's honestly been better. Like, looking at the underlying numbers, he's been better than I thought on the year, than I realized for sure.
Will be interesting if he's out though, because that's going to be able to bump Dinwiddie or Marshall or Clay or Exum. But we need these. We need the news. We're talking about 75 minutes that are questionable. This could get crazy for Dallas, or it could be totally uninteresting. We'll see. We'll see. Final game of the DraftKings slate. It's Portland Trailblazers, 9.5 point dogs in Denver, 229 total. Portland has a Q tag on Jeremy Grant, Chris Murray, and Time Lord. The Grant one is really the only one that matters. Simons is 5% owned. Ayton is 5% owned. Everybody is less than that. I have 30% of DeAndre Ayton, 20% of Anthony Simons, and very little else. And it's possible we can make some swaps for Jeremy Grant.
I don't know where you're getting 30% Ayton from. And I love a good crazy ownership number. And I got with the field on these guys. Got 7% Ayton. He looks like a 5.1x value to me, so I'm not mad at it. Getting 3% of Anthony Simons, so half the field there. Really not a game I like very much. Of the total for Portland at 110 is not great. Denver, I guess technically a pace up for Portland, but not enough of one that matters too much. Yeah, I'm out on Portland. I also frankly haven't gotten a lot of Portland when this rotation is full strength. These guys kind of seem appropriately priced for me, besides maybe the centers and Ayton in some games. But yeah, I'm not here today at all.
I don't know why I am, but I am. I am. $6,700 Ayton, center only. Late swap ability. I like having it. If I'm going to have some chunks of a 9 o'clock game, I'm okay with it. I don't expect to have that much Ayton or Simons by the time we get to that game's lock, but I'm okay with having it now. If Jeremy Grant is out, who do you think receives the biggest benefit? Do we end up getting to Delano Banton?
I would think you just get more reliable Avdia and Scoot minutes, right? Because that's the way it's been historically. It's tough because this rotation is like kind of jam packed and it feels like game to game. Sometimes the pieces move around a little bit, but I don't know anybody who would become like a big winner. I think it just becomes more viable to play Avdia and Scoot with these guys being lower, and Banton could get in the rotation as well. And he's cheap enough where that could matter. But they still have like enough guys, even if Grant's out. So I just don't love Portland in general. I feel like they have too many guys that do the same thing and like all get a good amount of usage up and produce well enough. And you get random outliers sometimes, but like it's mostly just a group of dudes that are like under 1 fantasy point per minute guys.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. At least I'm only getting the guys that are good per minute performers in Ayton and Simons. That's really my only saving grace. I got to hit a couple super chats that we got in throughout this show. First one came in from Chris Cash, noted DFS and best ball winner, Chris Cash. Happy Monday. Someone in this chat is winning big tonight. Well, I have typed in there, so we're going to go ahead and assume it's me, but thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Josh Chapman said all the star players are out to watch Luka. Yeah, I wouldn't blame it. That'd be a fun thing to watch tonight. He also asked the question, Niang or Keontae? Yeah, Keyshawn George? Keyshawn George. Niang or Keyshawn George with Washington? That would be George, pretty clearly.
Yeah, Niang had a very good start for Atlanta, but I don't expect that to hold very much.
I need to see it a couple more times, that's for sure. Final team on the DraftKings slate, Denver Nuggets. 5% ownership to Aaron Gordon is the most of anybody on the Nuggets. But we do have a Q tag on Michael Porter Jr., which is important because we still have no Peyton Watson and we still have no Russell Westbrook. I got the 12% of Jokic. I got the 12% of Aaron Gordon. I don't have much of Denver, but I think something happens here if Porter's out.
Yeah, I think Gordon would look better. Jokic would look better. Murray would look better. As it is right now, though, not a lot here. The value hasn't opened in a meaningful enough way to get to Jokic easily. I have Jokic at 7% right now, and I have him at a 66 fantasy point projection, which candidly is a little bit lower than Jokic is normally for me, where he's pretty close to 70. So it's not one of those Jokic days, but it is a rare day you get him as a tournament option. And God forbid he puts up your 100 fantasy point day here as a late night hammer, like he wins it all for you. So getting a little bit above Jokic, I think, would be the day to do it today, despite it being hard to do it. Aaron Gordon getting the most of here, getting 15%, getting also Porter Jr. at 2x the field, or a little bit, actually no, 2x the field, 9% for me. Denver's okay. They're not the usual Denver team here. Portland is a pace down spot. Portland also is a defense league average, a little bit worse than that. So you're not getting a big win spot. These guys are okay. I feel like they feel like the most tournament appealing team right now, especially if you get Porter out. But right now, even if Porter's in, the ownership is so low for these guys. And, Portland hangs in games and they're not good. And Denver can have outlier performances from a bunch of different dudes.
Folks, I need you guys to hit that like button. There's about 2,100 of you in here, 200 likes. I haven't asked since the beginning of the show. I see no reason we can't fly north of 300. I think 350 is in the cards. For the 1,800 of you that haven't done it yet, hit that thumbs up. We need 140 of you. Final game. FanDuel only. Utah Jazz, 12-point dogs in Los Angeles, taking on the Lakers. We've got about 15% ownership to Jordan Clarkson for Utah, who has just come back and started playing north of 30 minutes in every game. Don't understand it. 5% or less to everybody else from Utah. No Colin Sexton or KJ Martin. Does anything stand out to you for Utah? I think Clarkson looks okay, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think anything stands out that much. I mean, Collier's got some crazy assist lines out there. It's like 8.5, I think, is his market assist line. So, him doing what he's been doing, I guess, is probably expect that again with him being a 33% assist rate guy on the year. But yeah, to me, this spot doesn't look pretty good. Honestly, doesn't look good on either side. But Utah side in particular, I think looks, I don't even know where the upside would come from.
I don't really know where the upside is going to come from the Lakers side either, although there are some players that can provide it. 8% ownership to LeBron James, 8% ownership to newly minted Los Angeles Laker Luka Doncic, 0 ownership to Mark Williams, who didn't quite make the cut. Doubtful tag on Bronny James. He's not going to make it today, but Dalton Connect, welcome back. You never had to play for the Hornets. That's probably a benefit to you. Austin Reeves probable as well. No Cam Reddish, who got shipped back. LeBron at 10.5, I think, is reasonable. I'd have a tough time going to Luka because you just don't know how limited he's going to be in this debut. What do you do with this new look Lakers team?
I think you watch the game, you're glad that it got the flex onto national TV, and you don't play anybody in it from DFS because they are not priced for the situation. Austin Reeves not going to put up crazy triple doubles because you have not only LeBron back in, you also have Luka back in. Luka himself probably not worth any price tag really, besides maybe a showdown slate on DraftKings because he is not priced for life with LeBron James. It's also going to take a lot of usage, a lot of assist upside, a lot of rebounds away. Everybody else here is just going to be a cast member around these guys for the most part. So I don't think you play anything here. It should be fun to watch. Curious to see how it goes together. Giving away Luka merch at Crypto Arena today, so they're doing a lot of fun stuff for it. But this is not a DFS situation you want to be a part of, I think.
No, I don't see it. I really don't. We got a 4 OddsShopper rating on Luka under 3.5 threes. I kind of like that for today, but he might just make it rain out of spite. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
But that'll do it, folks. We've reached the end of the line on the FanDuel side. 10 games up, 10 games down. We've got 9 on DraftKings, as I mentioned. Spags, tell the people where to find you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Spags. Check out my NBA channel at Splash Play NBA every day before this show. I do a stream on there comparing my projections to Stokastics. Look at the ownership, look at some betting markets, run some DFS sims. So great place to be. And I'm not going to get to see Josh again, guys, before it. So wish Josh a happy 40th birthday. He gets some time off on Wednesday. I'll be here dealing with the madness, and Josh gets to enjoy life as a newly minted 40-year-old man, a silver fox. Old Josh Engleman.
No way. No silver here, baby. Just on the balls. Top of the head is great. Who needs any just for men, man? Unless I need to put it on the old ball sack. Otherwise, we're good. Live before lock coming up next, everybody. Thank you for being here. And I appreciate you guys getting up to 374 likes. Seems like we can get north of 400 before these guys start. Have fun. Tell them hi. Live before lock is next.
What is happening, everybody? Hope you all had a good weekend. Hopefully, you had some nice plans for the Super Bowl. Unless you're an Eagles fan, you probably didn't enjoy the game too much. It was kind of dog shit. But we got basketball to talk about for the next few days. And then you know what's going to happen. The NBA All-Star break. So let's get in these slates and enjoy them while we can, because we're going to have about a week with no basketball because there's games Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. The All-Star break starts on Friday. And then when we come back next Thursday, Eric, it's only to a one-game slate. So let's enjoy these games while we can. We are sponsored today here by DraftKings Pick6. So if you guys haven't checked out Pick6 in the DraftKings lobby, go ahead and play it. It's a great way to find some value to buoy your DFS play. I know that Eric has played a good amount of Pick6 over the course of this season. I don't have availability to play it here in New Jersey. Wish I was able to play it. And then also, don't forget that if you haven't checked out DraftKings Pick6, you want to sign up for that or any of the other affiliate partners that we have here at Stokastic, link down below in the YouTube description box. For each one of our partners you sign up for, get 1 free month of core access to a sport of your choosing. So great way to start the second half of the NBA season, be with a free month or two of our NBA core package. Eric, how was your weekend?
It was good. It was a good weekend. I got to hang out for a friend's birthday Saturday. Got to watch the football game yesterday, which my wife loved. So you're saying how uneventful it was. My wife could not have had more fun. She loves to hate on Travis Kelce. She absolutely hates Travis Kelce for her girl, Taylor Swift. So she's not a big fan of this guy and just thinks Patrick Mahomes is annoying and sounds too much like Kermit the Frog, which is ironic because she's married to a guy who I think sounds a little bit like Kermit the Frog. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I had a great weekend. How about yourself?
Yeah, it was all right. Like sports sucked this weekend, and there was some stuff I was excited for, like the Super Bowl. I wasn't that excited for UFC 312, but I thought the main event and the co-main event could be good. They both sucked. From a sporting event, it was kind of a disappointing weekend, but otherwise pretty chill, pretty relaxing. No real complaints on that end. And now we're back to talk about our usual chaotic NBA DFS slate, which starts right off the bat, Eric, with a player getting ruled out. Max Strus, he was questionable to play with an ankle injury. He's been downgraded to out. Well, earlier in the day, he was questionable. Then he quickly became doubtful, which quickly became out. So right off the bat, something quick to address here. And we've got DeAndre Hunter as a new addition to the Cleveland Cavaliers. With him in the mix now, does the absence of Max Strus really open up any kind of value for Cleveland?
I mean, it would if you got a Ty Jerome starting, which is weird because Basketball Monster has Ty Jerome starting, and I'm not sure what I think about that. We get Mike Conley and Ant. We're still waiting on Q tags with them on the other side. It sets up as a punt game. If you're looking at Minnesota's schedule, Saturday they played against Portland at home. They're playing a one-game session here in Cleveland. Then they fly back to Minnesota to play a back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday. You brought it up before. We have a lot of like sprint slates type stuff coming up here before the All-Star break starts on Friday, basically. No basketball Friday until next Thursday where you have the one game. Then we pick back up Friday with a regular slate and everybody's playing again. But with every team in the entire NBA playing on Wednesday and then a handful of them that are playing on Thursday, you're going to get some weird rest stuff either now or later here from Minnesota because they play Milwaukee, which will be without Giannis. And then you'll be playing Thursday against OKC where you could see Minnesota punt that again. I think that has me leaning towards Ant being in, Conley being out, but like just kind of depends on what they want to do with that starting lineup for the Cleveland side. I think it makes the most sense to put Hunter in, but if they don't want to utilize him right from the get-go, I'm not in the locker room. I don't understand, like, what I mean, Sam Merrill could potentially start. We've seen that be kind of the guy who's alongside of it. I don't know what to make of it, but right now, Basketball Monster has Ty Jerome, and that just surprises me. Who do you think the third starter is? Or the fifth starter, sorry.
Yeah, whatever number starter you want to make it.
Playing the 3.
So my understanding is they want to keep DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench because that's kind of the role he's played with Atlanta, and they want to keep him alive for the Sixth Man of the Year award. So I don't think Hunter starts. Maybe they change course. They end up making that be the case because initially when it was said online that the expectation was for Hunter to come off the bench, I think there was also an expectation that Max Strus would be able to start at that point in time. But we consider the matchup against the Minnesota Timberwolves. If Hunter isn't going to start, then I think you look at guys like Sam Merrill, maybe Jalen Tyson, who they've also started a couple of other times this year. My gut feeling is that they're going to have Jalen Tyson start, but he doesn't play full starters minutes just to kind of match up with a bigger Minnesota team.
Yeah, I think Jalen Tyson's a really good call, actually. That's kind of the one person I hadn't really contemplated. We've seen that. We saw it in Miami. That was the spot start that ended up popping up there. again, there's so many different ways that it could go. This is the first wave of games, so I'm not that concerned about it unless we're getting to crunch time and we still haven't heard anything. My assumption, though, is that you would end up having DeAndre Hunter in there just because you went and got him. And yeah, the expectation was Max Strus was going to be out there. So I ended up putting Hunter in for starters minutes, and he looks pretty darn good as a result. But that's about the only thing outside of like trace amounts of Garland, Mitchell. It's a slow pace spot still for Cleveland standards. 231 total still looks okay, but we have so much value coming up later that I can't imagine I want to get to like anything too heavy in this early window of games.
Yeah, and speaking of those injury reports, we have pretty chalk loaded one where, we got the Max Strus one. This was such a minor piece of news relative to some of the other things that we had. And we also did get a little bit of kind of a bizarre update earlier, which was that neither Jaylen Brown nor Jason Tatum were available at shoot around for the Boston Celtics. Now, with that said, it was an optional shoot around. So I don't know how much to read into that, but I'm personally considering them questionable as of right now. Damian Lillard is questionable. Anthony Edwards is questionable. Steph Curry is questionable. PJ Washington is questionable. Michael Porter Jr. is questionable. Diabate is questionable. That matters when you consider this is a slate where I don't know what the hell is going to happen with Mark Williams in Charlotte, but they've kind of made it clear that they don't want him here. And then they have to put out that awkward press release on Twitter where it's like, we are so happy that the trade that we pushed for got rescinded, which, so that's kind of weird. So now you get Mark Williams back in the mix, although he's not going to be available today. So if Diabate is out, then you have a situation where Nurkic, like, does he step into a starter's role and play big minutes? That's a possibility. Jeremy Grant's also questionable. Nick Smith Jr. is questionable. Mike Conley's questionable. Max Christie's questionable, although that's only for the FanDuel slate, not the DraftKings slate. Of all the news we have today, which pieces do you think are going to impact your lineups the most?
God, there's so many of them today. First off, Charlotte could be down like everybody.
Yeah.
Like everybody. And I got to assume that if I get a sub 4K Nurkic starting, I'm just going to play 100% of him. So that would kind of cleanse my lineups to some extent, or probably create a reckoning there, because you put Nurkic in for like 22 minutes and he looks good. 24 minutes, he's going to be in everything. Was kind of going through the iterations of what that would look like if we get Diabate out. Won't even matter about Smith Jr. or Green. It's just basically that one piece of news there. And then the other ones, obviously, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. We already got news that Tyler Hero is going to be out, so that entire game environment could just look drastically different. Dame, obviously, getting removed would open up Ryan Rollins. And then Dallas, I think there's a potential nuke of the night candidate that's sitting there if PJ Washington gets ruled out. So there's just so many Q tags. It's hard to say one, but just because it comes up a little bit earlier and Diabate getting ruled out, I think that's the one that would change for me, because, I mean, a sub 4K Nurkic, we know how good of a fantasy performer he can be. He played for a Phoenix team that didn't really have an on-ball guy because Tyus Jones was out for a little bit there. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal. Yeah, Nurkic did not perform well because all three of those guys are hogging the basketball. LaMelo Ball's a creator. Like, there's an actual assist rate that goes with that. And I got to think that that would be an absolute slam dunk sub 4K. So I'll probably just say Diabate because it's the earlier game, and that'll dictate what I do with some of the stuff.
Sure. I think that definitely makes a good amount of sense. And speaking on Diabate, and we brought up, there's a lot of moving parts here, but it's good to at least be prepared for when that news, because we're going to get some sort of news in the next 48 minutes, probably in the next 15 minutes or so. What do you think is the potential upside of minutes out of Nurkic? Like, is there a scenario here where he plays over 30? Do you think that's in the cards?
Yeah, he hasn't played since the 7th, and I broke this down a little bit on my video last night, and then in the betting thread that I'm doing at Eric Lindquist, if you guys want to follow along, talking through more of the projection-based stuff. I'm integrating a lot of OddsShopper and integrating a lot of market-based approach as well. I kind of have a blended approach, I would call it, where I kind of go both directions to some extent and really rely on the tools, but then also working through some of the analysis. I think Nurkic could be a full go right from the get-go. I think there could be 28, 30 minutes, 32, I think is actually in the cards. He wasn't injured. He just was on Budenholzer's shit list. Like, I don't know what else to say other than that. Like, he can walk into such a ridiculous role. And anybody who's played NBA DFS forever, a sub 4K Nurkic is so different than like a 4,500 Diabate or like a Like just like working through some of the numbers that you would put for rates for him. And it's Brooklyn, the slowest pace team in the NBA, 93 defensive rating over the course of their last, or sorry, 93 in pace, 93 possessions per 48 minutes, their last 5 games. By far the slowest in the NBA. And still, I would get 100% Nurkic just putting him in for like 24 minutes in this spot if he gets that start. He's so hard to avoid if you get Diabate out.
Yeah, and then I see like Trey McKellen chat saying, I don't get why these guys need to rest when they have a break. Well, for a lot of these guys, they're just actually hurt, right? Like Diabate is just dealing with it. He left last game early with an injury.
Yep.
And then as somebody like Nurkic, while we're unsure of what his minutes might be, like Eric said, while it wasn't an injury he was dealing with, he hasn't played since January 7th because he was just out of the rotation for the Suns. So you don't know, are they going to want to push him in Charlotte? It's his first game with the team. He hasn't played in just over a month. So definitely some factors that we're going to find more about here as we lead up into lock. And if you guys have any questions for us, leave a super chat, hit us up in the Discord channel. I'm on the lookout for that. And then also I want to ask Jordan, of these super chats that are sitting here, because I see there's a handful of them, which one of these were from last show and which ones are here for Eric and I now? Okay.
Ooh.
He did or didn't answer Jalen versus. All right. So let's answer Jalen versus super chat, which is, who are the top 3 FanDuel GPP spend ups any position? Then he says, thanks, pimps. All right. Who are our 3 favorite spend ups on FanDuel, Eric? Now, keep in mind, the FanDuel slate does include the later game. Now, with that said, I don't know that I'm going to have all that much interest in it. I know that people probably are thinking like, oh, cool, we get Luka, his first game with the Lakers. We are also getting, LeBron James playing alongside Luka. I'm not going to say there is an upside there. I do have a little bit of concern about what the playing time is going to look like for Luka based on some of the reporting we got earlier, which was the Lakers are going to be cautious with Luka's minutes. And when you consider what just happened with Anthony Davis, where Anthony Davis, here's my opinion on the situation. Anthony Davis, after the game, said that he wasn't 100% going into the game. And he didn't think the injury was all that serious, but he had said that he wasn't totally 100% going in. I think because the trade was getting so much scrutiny, I think the Mavericks probably just rushed him back a little bit too soon. Injury reoccurrence. And now you got a guy who was about ready to come back, is now going to be out for maybe the majority of the rest of the NBA regular season. So I do think that might also influence how cautious the Lakers are with Luka. So just keep in mind as a reason why I'm not going to be like super high on Luka, as maybe some other people might be for a first game with the Lakers. So before we get into our top overall plays on the FanDuel, I just want to ask you, Eric, do you think the Lakers might manage Luka's minutes a little bit?
So David Meneman came out with a quote. He was on like NBA. I was watching ESPN a little bit, and he basically said that they're going to be, taking a look at Luka's minutes. Then I don't really know what the hell that means. I just know that it was something that he basically said that they weren't going to be like a full go, but like if it's 36 down to like 32, 33, that's still doable. Is it like them seeing 38, 40 and him still being down to 34, 36? I don't know. All I know is it's 10-8 for Luka. And this basketball team has sold out defense in the name of offense. And this is something that I thought about a lot last year when they were playing D'Lo alongside Reeves and Anthony Davis was out for a little bit. Like they go to some of these lineups and this is going to be all gas, no breaks. Luka, Austin Reeves. I think Hachimura continues to start over Dorian Finney-Smith. They probably need Dorian Finney-Smith out for defense sooner rather than later. But LeBron, Jackson Hayes, this is a team that is just going to go out and try to score 130 every single night. And I think Luka can really be the catalyst of it. I'm sure LeBron, he's smart enough to understand, like, want to get my guy involved right from the get-go. And this is a low price tag at 10-8 on Luka. I think he's in play for FanDuel purposes. Am I calling him a priority? No, but if I were playing FanDuel today, he's definitely the guy out of anybody up there that I would want to get some exposure to. He's point guard as well. When you look at like LaMelo and Trey, and they're not looking all that good on FanDuel where they don't get as big of a bump as opposed to DraftKings. I think Luka is in play to just go out, take 40% usage in his first time out and just putting up a field day. So like Luka's the one guy out of anybody on the Lakers I'd want. Can't really imagine getting to anything else.
So now with that said, who are 3 favorite pay up options overall on FanDuel? And once again, this is any position. We didn't get any kind of real restrictions, just top 3 FanDuel GPP spend ups. And let's say spend up is anything above 8K. And the reason I'm making it 8K is just because the lineups I've noticed I've built out on FanDuel, I'm not getting to the super expensive guys, but I have a handful of exposure to the guys in the 8K range. So for me, the players that are standing out the most, it's Franz Wagner, it's Paulo Banchero. Not necessarily thrilled about playing them in lineups together, but I think the two of them, $8,600 for Wagner, $8,300 for Paulo Banchero, each individually look really good. And then also Bam Adebayo at $8,200. Kind of modest ownership, especially when you consider he has the power forward eligibility, but there's no more Jimmy Butler in Miami. And in addition to that, we don't have Tyler Hero tonight. He's out. The offense is going to have to flow through Bam Adebayo a little bit more. So those are my three favorite spend ups on FanDuel, Eric. I don't know if you've built out lineups for FanDuel, if there's anything else you want to add to that trio.
No, I think both of the Magic guys, just because on FanDuel you're getting these advantageous tags and they're getting such a pace up spot. I mean, we just really never see Orlando have games with like 220 totals ever. I mean, Denver, this one, that's about it. Like they just really never get this kind of a total, and they can push Franz and Paulo a little bit before the break. I wouldn't mind whatsoever making them like the 1A, 1B as far as what I would be doing on FanDuel today on DK. A little bit different conversation, but I think the one guy I want to highlight that you didn't bring up on FanDuel is Dame. He doesn't get the bump that he does over on DK because the 3-point, you don't get the bonus on FanDuel for it. But if you get Dame in today, coming off of 44 minutes yesterday, I think there's enough people that haven't clicked on Dame right from the get-go. And it really doesn't change some of the insane rates that we're looking at with him. 40.8% assist rate with both Giannis and Chris Middleton off the floor, 34% usage. I mean, this is a pretty decent sample size. He's a 1.4 FanDuel points per minute player with those two off the floor. And yeah, he gets Kuzma, he gets Portis, he gets a number of these other guys that are more serviceable than some of the other pieces that he had there. For sure can play more minutes, Kuzma can, than a guy like Chris Middleton, but I look at Dame at 9,500. Nobody will click on it. We have him projected right around 12% ownership. I'd be surprised to see it just because of the Q tag in yesterday's minutes allotment.
We just got word that Brook Lopez is officially available to play. Let's wait a second because that could mean a Dame update's coming shortly. Nothing quite yet. We'll see though. Next question we got is a super chat from Realist EDM. Realist EDM wants to know, what do we think of a LeBron Jokic stack? And then he says LeBron might have low ownership tonight with Luka, but he could go off. Yeah, I mean, LeBron's always live to go off, and I'll answer the second part of your super chat after this. The problem that I have up, Tatum is going to be in today, so I assume that means we're about to find out Jaylen Brown is in too. Well, no, fuck me. Jaylen Brown has been ruled out. Wow. So we'll touch on that in a second. Let's finish answering Realist EDM super chat. But Realist EDM wants to know, what do we think of a LeBron Jokic stack to start? So I don't think there's any way to view the inclusion of Luka to this team as anything other than a negative for LeBron James. I don't like him for today.
Yeah, LeBron, no. LeBron's a no for me. Not playing alongside Luka. I mean, the push and pull effect of like him and Anthony Davis, like, I mean, Anthony Davis was playing huge minutes, but Anthony Davis, a lot of his fantasy outcomes too, like on a FanDuel perspective, was just blocks and such. I think Luka's going to steal a lot more usage going forward, I would think, than what we're going to get from like an AD, although AD was out of control to start off the beginning of the season and probably fewer minutes from Luka right out the gate. But even still, just not a great spot when you think about, I mean, the 8K, 9K range on FanDuel just look ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that stand out to me in the 8K range. And then it's just, you're paying up for LeBron, who's at a ceiling. Keep in mind, earlier in the season, when LeBron was playing with AD, he was a sub 10K player over on FanDuel. And now AD is gone. But bring Luka, who's a higher usage guy and has more of a skill overlap with LeBron. You know, LeBron might finish the season in the low 9K range, maybe even high 8K range once Luka's a full go. So I'm not crazy about playing LeBron on tonight's slate. The second part of his question, he wants to know what we make of George Niang and Kevin Porter Jr. as value options, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Porter Jr., that is so unbelievably painfully thin. Like there's not really a world that I would want to play Kevin Porter Jr. at 4K on this slate. He played 0 minutes yesterday. I can't even imagine that he would be somebody that should be in your player pool. Like, you'd have to get some kind of unexpected news that all of a sudden he was just going to get inserted into this lineup. But like, Gary Trent, I know, went scorched earth mode yet again, 7 for 15 from 3 yesterday, was the unexpected value piece you kind of wanted to have a little bit more of. But Rollins is, I think, going to be still ahead of him in the rotation. Like, I can't imagine Kevin Porter Jr., unless we got news that Dame was out and then we could maybe rotate him in, is going to be somebody that I'm going to have like a prevalent amount of on this slate.
Yeah. So for guys like Niang, Kevin Porter Jr., I mean, there's so many players that are questionable.
Yeah, they're thin.
You know, we'll see what ends up happening. Clint Capella was ruled out a little while ago. But let's get to this Jaylen Brown news now, because this is a big piece. I assume that Tatum and Brown are both going to play. Instead, we find out Brown is out, Tatum is in. And when we get a projections update, we'll throw those up on screen. I'm sure that'll be coming in a couple minutes or so. What's your initial reaction to the absence of Jaylen Brown when you consider, Eric, that this isn't an otherwise fully healthy Boston Celtics team? Because normally we only see like one guy out at a time for Boston, but Drew Holiday is already out for this team as well. So no Drew Holiday and no Jaylen Brown. Is this creating some value on a Boston Celtics team that's usually kind of hard to mine value out of?
Yeah, we'll see. I can't imagine value is probably what I'm going to go too crazy for. We did get Hunter starting for Cleveland. I win.
Nice.
But we have Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown out. Jason Tatum has a 40.8% usage in 396 minutes. However, there's a couple of things to keep in account with this. One, a majority of that sample size is without Kristaps Porzingis, who got a late start to the season. And so you got to expect that usage to come down a little bit. But the second part is you have Drew Holiday out there as well. I think this definitely, I mean, how many times can we talk about Peyton Pritchard as just like an eternal tournament option who's going to go out, shoot the ball ad nauseum, get an opportunity, but it's not even Pritchard that I'm the most excited about. I think it's Derek White, who probably walks into 38 minutes. Like, Pritchard's like a hot, cold option, but like, I think Derek White's just like a good piece to be getting to. And Miami on the other side, we'll see. I mean, I'm assuming Rozier gets the start there for Tyler Hero. Can't really think of a lot of situations it wouldn't be Terry Rozier. I know that Davion Mitchell is available to play in that spot. That would be a stone cold, ridiculous disaster to have Spoelstra just go through the entire roster and play everybody now without Hero there. But I think Pritchard will be like in play, but Derek White, 6,300, and Jason Tatum, obviously 10K is a big number, but I think it's doable here. Kristaps Porzingis, there's a lot of good center plays, and there could be even more center plays coming up later. Plus, we know how many times, like, if you get tons of value, which we're kind of expecting in some capacity on this slate, you want to have some center and utility spots open for Jokic at 12-7 against Portland. They should just absolutely go nuts. He gets DeAndre Ayton on the other side, which, you know, this team is second in defensive rating over the course of the last month, but I think a little bit of that is a mirage of a lot of home games and a lot of healthy teams that they've been able to play, or that they've been a healthier team than most of late. So I look at Jokic as kind of the priority. If we get a ton of value throughout the night, his optimal percentage is going to continue to go up. We talk about that all the time, but Derek White, what do you think about him? Because he's the main guy in my first run that I got a ton of.
Yeah, let's see. So Derek White, $6,300. He actually already projected kind of decently for us, even with Jaylen Brown in. We had him projected for 32 fantasy points. Now that we're going to be taking Jaylen Brown off of the court, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, but I assume we're probably going to have Derek White somewhere around 34.5 as a fantasy projection, something like that. Yeah, I think he's going to look solid. As far as Jason Tatum and Porzingis go, they're also going to be looking like better options than they previously did. But the guy I'm going to be prioritizing, I agree with you. I think it's Derek White.
Yeah, he's just shooting guard eligibility, 6,300. And again, I just did a rough run. I have him at 35.5. So I'm very curious what we end up putting him in for. This also became a much more competitive spread. This opened at 9.5, got bet down to 6. You get one of the two gets ruled out. I'm sure it's going to even somewhere out around 6.5, 7, because I mean, you got Tatum in. I think he's the more impactful of the two, even if Jaylen Brown, you know, won finals MVP last year, has had a pretty, you know, I'd say he's had a substandard season for like what we would expect from Jaylen Brown. He's shooting like 32.5% from three, 46% from the field. He's been about neutral relative to his career averages in plus minus, but I look at Derek White, 6,300 as like a priority for me. And then we'll see Sam Hauser at 3,400. We know he goes out there and chucks. I think he's probably the guy I'll take some shots on, even if he doesn't start, just to truly try to find some kind of like shooting upside there. There's tons of different lineup configurations that they can go to, but assuming that Hauser ends up getting in there for Jaylen Brown, and then they keep Pritchard coming off the bench, we'll be talking about him as value as well.
So something else I want to add, a little bit of a betting angle here. If DeAndre Hunter is going to start when the Cavs are shorthanded, which I assume is probably going to be a good amount down the end of the regular season, Peyton Pritchard, who is close to even money to win Sixth Man of the Year right now, it's kind of gotten tighter between him and DeAndre Hunter. Hunter could end up kind of making too many starts and playing himself out of consideration there. So that's a little bit of a betting angle here. Is I think the number you can get on Peyton Pritchard right now, like anywhere like minus 150-ish, I think that's a pretty good bet right now for Sixth Man of the Year. Another good way to get some good value in betting, check out a 7-day free trial of Portfolio EV. Link is down below in the YouTube description box. Earlier today, Lofty and I did a new show over on the OddsShopper channel, breaking down some bets. We hung out from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time, so we're on during the 1:30 injury report update, and we're going to be doing that on big slates going forward. That's the plan. So if you guys want some more betting information from Lofty, myself, and Portfolio EV, check out that show. The next one we're going to be doing is on Wednesday for the big 15-game slate, which should have a ton of value. But if you want the free trial, link is down below in the YouTube description box. Let me refresh our projections page, see if we have this updated. Let's see. Do we have? Not quite yet. Should be soon, though.
There's a lot of things in flux with it. I mean, just to kind of like we'll put a bookend on it just for the time being. Derek White, Sam Hauser, Tatum, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis. I'd be pretty surprised if it wasn't that for a starting five. And then Pritchard should have some great opportunities to come in and knock down shots and do his normal thing. It's just going to be a push and pull of what ends up happening with later news. Obviously, Dame and Steph with Q tags. I expect Steph to play. Dame, I'm less sure about with that 44 minutes that he played yesterday. And then the other two biggies, like, I mean, we got Dallas with just so many Q tags, and they could be shorthanded. Like, they could be legitimately starting. I think if Exum's out, you're probably getting Dinwiddie, but that won't really matter that much for these purposes. PJ Washington out. They've gone to Kessler Edwards. Kind of a weird one there, but Max Christie, if you get all three of them out, it could be really strange what we're looking at here from a DFS perspective, trying to get to Dallas value. And Michael Porter Jr. being out, we've seen that a couple of times, but now Jeremy Grant, questionable. There's so many ways that, like, even that late game, you want to get to more Jokic. You want to get to something from value perspective. So, like, oh, man, it's going to be really fun to see where the ownership comes in on Hauser and Derek White specifically.
So we just got some updates here. Anthony Edwards is going to play today, so that's good to know. We've got him confirmed, and so that's a big piece that we don't have to worry about. However, Mike Conley. Oh, boy. Okay, so a lot of injury news coming in right now. All right. Mike Conley is out. Anthony Edwards is in. So we have some situation to talk about in the backcourt for your Minnesota Timberwolves, Eric. Another update. Diabate is in. So that's something we're not going to have to worry about as much with the Nurkic situation. Diabate, good to play today. Isaiah Wong, he's out. That doesn't really matter all that much. Let's start by talking about Mike Conley. We got a pretty disappointing start from Rob Dillingham the other day. He was uber chalky. I want to say off the top of my head that he was nearly 60%.
Not even starting.
We also got the starting lineup here. It's not going to be him. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert. Anything that really stands out to you, Mike Conley out, and this being the starting lineup for, and Steph Curry's in, for your Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yeah, not really. It's kind of a much ado about nothing outside of Ant, where he's 9,700 and just in scorched earth mode right now. I can't imagine getting to anything in like a prominent way on Minnesota. Naz Reid, he's up to 6,900. That looks a lot worse. He's been really popular on slates. We'll see where his ownership lands. If he's just going to be unowned, there's a world to potentially get to him. But I got to think with Kuzma coming up later, Portis coming up later, there's just not a lot of like forward depth that I want to be getting to. I want to prioritize those guys even on the second half of a back-to-back. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he played big minutes. He played 38 against Portland. A lot of that was just they kind of needed him to. He's in play, but God, it's pretty unappealing. You're getting up against a Cleveland team. Their defensive numbers are down. Their offensive numbers are up for what it's worth. But even still, I think him getting to like 38 minutes, a little bit of an outlier. Plus, there was no Ant playing on Saturday. So you got to imagine the usage has to scale way down. I'm probably not going to be getting to anything even with Conley out.
We've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, $4,900. He was somebody who wasn't going to be in lineups for me that will probably be in some lineups now, not as any kind of priority, but he's viable now. At least I imagine he'll land in some lineups. By the way, Chad, I feel bad for, I assume it's Rich doing the projections right now, because I have a feeling that every time he's about to push an update, another piece of news comes out, which causes him to have to redo everything. Like, we just got the Atlanta Hawks starting lineup, and who is it back in the starting unit but Muhammad Gay? So it is Young, Daniels, Resache, Gay, and Okongwu in the starting five. Yet Muhammad Gay was starting for this team. Then he moved to a bench role. Then he falls out of the rotation entirely. Now he's back in the starting unit. So what is his price point today?
Just so weird that, like, they do this. He's a flat 3K. He's going to be, like, playable for sure. Yeah. I mean, whatever. I was just hoping that we were going to get, like, something. I wanted George Niang to start just so that we didn't have to deal with this crap. But here we are. Whatever. It is what it is. At least it's not Dominic Barlow. Well. I'm pretty convinced Dominic Barlow sucks.
So first, my bad, because I thought you were done. I started talking, but
that's okay.
Niang played so well the other day. I just assumed they were going to start him again.
Yep, me too.
But not the case. We've got Muhammad Gay in the starting lineup. And like you said, Eric, he's the flat mint in 3K. That's just going to be somebody who's kind of difficult to avoid. He's not good by any means, but it's one of these scenarios. Get a guy who's starting that's the flat min at 3K. See, what were his other starts?
Not only that, but he's a 1.14 DraftKings points per minute player. It's just a 90-minute sample. But with DeAndre Hunter out, the one thing you got to remember is you are getting usage available, because DeAndre Hunter was shooting. He was shooting it really, really well, and they basically kind of sold at a high point on him. I think Karis LeVert makes some sense as somebody that they could bring in. I know Darko was a little bit more on the side of LeVert than what I was expecting based on Hunter and the year he was having, but I look at Vic Krejci at 4,800 as a guy who is just going to be like playing high 20s, low 30s minutes for this team going forward in just about every spot. As you said before, I was surprised. Muhammad Gay was over in the G League and, you know, obviously not crazy involved. What he played on the 7th. He had a really good fantasy game in that one. That's going to definitely buoy his ownership for today. But I'm still nervous because there's enough bodies that they've got behind him. And obviously George Niang, they can play mid-20s minutes right from the get-go here. Got up to 26 against Washington there. Yeah, it's just a cluster F.
2 starts for Muhammad Gay this year. He hasn't played a ton of minutes, 15 and a half in the last one. Now, with that said, they got absolutely obliterated. They lost the game by 22 points. So that's definitely something to consider. The game before that, where he started, he played 22 and a half minutes, scored 22.25 fantasy points. But yeah, this looks like a guy who, to your point, it's a small sample size, Eric, but probably somewhere around a fantasy point per minute. If that's going to be the case, it's hard to not expect a starter to be somewhere around at least 20 minutes at his price point, and also being a premium position. He's definitely going to be somebody that we're going to want to consider here. Let's see what we have for one more super chat here from Sam Van Dam. He says, for $5,100 or less, DK utility cash, last one in. Boy, I don't know if he set me up with this or something else, but the answer is pretty clearly Terry Rozier.
Yeah, it is.
Just at that price point, no Tyler Hero today. Terry Rozier, he's going to be the guy that we're going to be looking to roster. I don't even know that there's another consideration at that price point, pending whatever other injury news ends up coming out in the next few minutes here. We do have a handful of questions from Discord to touch on here. And if you guys haven't done yet, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Coach DFS wants to know, who are the top plays for DK cash games with all the stuff that's broken, Eric? And we're still waiting for an ownership update. But of all the things that have broken so far, who is it that we're considering the must plays in cash games?
Yeah, Kuzma Portis still. That's not going to change. And it could get even better, where I guess the conversation becomes like, what other punts could show up, and comparing them to Muhammad Gay, just because I think Gay, as far as like his minutes allotment, you put him in for 20 minutes at a fantasy point per minute, that's 20 fantasy points. Look at that. Hashtag math. But like, what else could show up later that would just be like, oh man, I got to have those lineup spots open? I'd be tempted now with a 3K Gay piece to say Jokic, even just like, I know he's way up there in salary. And I mean, in the last run of ownership we had, he was 4% owned, but like, the more that this night goes on and the more we continue to get value and other pieces that are going to show up, I don't know how much I would want to like jam, but like, I have Jokic projected for 9 more fantasy points than Wemby. Got him for, who's the next guy in the main slate? Yeah, Jason Tatum sitting around 50. So like, it would be hard for me to give up like the raw points if I'm playing a 3K him and then a 5K, 5K range Kuzma, 6K range Portis. Going that direction, I'll save those 3 for right now. And Jokic, even if he's just a placeholder with like later pieces to mix and match, I would be totally fine doing it that way too.
Yeah, makes sense to me. It is kind of nice. We still have pending injury news, but we've gotten a lot of it in the last 15, 20 minutes or so. I'll just recap for everybody. Here's what's officially the players who are questionable that we're waiting for. Damian Lillard, he is still questionable. PJ Washington still questionable. Michael Porter Jr. still questionable. Jeremy Grant questionable. Max Christie questionable. Once again, that only matters for the FanDuel slate, but Dame still being the really big one there. So just letting you guys know what it is that we have going on right here. Let's see what we have. Super chat from Dustin Stringer wants to know the top plays at each position for FanDuel. Yes, sir. All right. For FanDuel, here's what I have at each position. Do you have updated FanDuel lines? Just want me to handle this, Eric?
You do it. I haven't updated it yet.
Okay. So at point guard for me, that is Jose Alvarado. At shooting guard for me, that is Buddy Hield. If you want a little bit more of a contrarian option, Duncan Robinson. At small forward, it's pretty hard to get away from Kyle Kuzma. At power forward, Franz Wagner. And then at center, Daniel Gafford with all the players shorthanded there for the Dallas Mavericks. Also, Gafford already looks good for us in our data. Potentially look even better if PJ Washington was to be ruled out. So those are the guys I get to the most at each position for FanDuel. Now getting into our questions in Discord, Ethan7 wants to know, and this might be a nuke of the night consideration to get into here, Eric. He wants to know, who are the guys that we are most overweight to the field to that are under 10% owned? So one caveat to this is I believe that we're still waiting on an ownership update. Yes. So I'm not going to know. Yeah, we have projections updated now. So here's what we'll do. Let's look at the updated projections on the key spots, and then we'll circle back on the ownership question. That could lead us into the nuke of the night, Eric. Just because until the ownership's updated in like a minute from now, I might give you some players who are not actually under 10% owned. What are the spots you want to look at first for projection updates?
Boston.
All right, Jordan, pull the Boston Celtics up on screen.
This is a fun way to do it. We'll just take a little tour the way that I want to do it. Yeah, I think Horford, White, Porzingis, Tatum. I'm very curious to see where everything lands with those four specifically, because we're going to get value. We have value with Mohamed Gay now. We have value that's going to potentially be coming up later. I've got one guy I've got my eye on. Haven't brought him up at all. Nobody's going to bring him up at all. He's going to be potentially the best play on the entire slate, just from a tournament perspective. But I look at Boston right now with everything that we just got updated. And we got another update like 29 seconds ago, Jordan, if you want to refresh that, just because I think, let's see, Derek White. Yeah, Derek White, Al Horford, Sam Hauser. The Sam Hauser piece is just a very interesting one because we've seen where that usage can be way, way up there, and he can really, really find an upside. And then we've also seen it where it goes down, 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 and playing alongside a Tatum. Again, it would have been more impactful to get Jaylen Brown playing instead of Tatum, but such is life. We have to kind of deal with this. There might be a ton of chalk coming in on Sam Hauser, and in tournaments, I think I might want to be trimming it here just based on, again, we're not really getting a ton of ownership on him right now. So maybe that ends up being a moot point, but I think this is definitely one of those spots where I want to be invested. And I think with the ownership update coming in here, I want to see where Tatum's ownership gets at specifically.
Yeah, so the ownership is going to be updated probably in like 30 seconds. We'll have it. Okay. So as of right now, we're looking at as far as the projections, not updated in the ownership quite yet. So if you're looking, like, don't consider Sam Hauser to be 0% owned right now. That's going to be changing soon.
No, I'm curious though. Let's pull up Dallas. I want to just talk through Dallas because I think this is like our late swap candidate of the day. And as you do that, while we wait for projections to come up, Jordan Klein, I'll cue you. Hit nuke of the night, baby. It is time.
Can't wait. Can't wait. He has to do it right now. Well, there we go, Eric. You wanted it to play, and I mean, we're approaching the end of the show here anyway. But you've been saying since the start of the show, you have somebody, don't think anybody else is playing. You're all excited to talk about him, so I want to know who is this mystery nuke of the night player.
Well, everybody's actually getting it right in the chat. I didn't see that one coming, but I have absolutely no idea how. If you don't get XM playing today, if you don't get PJ Washington playing, as long as you get one of these Q tags, PJ Washington not playing, as long as you get one Q tag to break your way, Najee Marshall steps into play already for you. And it's the small forward, power forward thing, because we have Tatum. I want to see very close. Clint Capella's inactive, mother of God. But anyway,
that was known.
Okay, just wanted to double check that I hadn't overlooked anything, because I did not see that earlier. I was in the betting streets, but I digress. Najee Marshall, there are so many ways. You just need one of these 3 Q tags to break your way, and I think he steps into strong consideration, small forward, power forward. He's not on a back-to-back. He got himself up to 29 minutes against Boston after being out for, a brief stint there. It was like a couple of games there. He was off 8 days from the 21st till the 28th of January it was. He came back and played 29 minutes. He's got 30-plus minute upside in a tight spread. This is a 1-point spread that we're looking at. He's sub 5K. And there's so many ways that he becomes interesting as long as you get one of the 3 Q tags out. He also will be coming up after Golden State Milwaukee with all of that ownership that is going to get absorbed. And I have no problem playing Kuzma Portis. I have no idea who's going to start because, obviously Doc Rivers hates all of us, including, especially Greg and I. But I look at Najee Marshall sub 5K as somebody who has to step into more usage. There are only low usage guys aside from Spencer Dinwiddie that sit there, and I think he'll continue to come off the bench. Najee Marshall, nuke of the night.
I want to see the updated ownership here a second. Come on. Don't be popular. Don't be popular. Should be up. Yeah, here we go. All right, we got an ownership update while we were running the nuke of the night right there.
I tried to stall it as much as I could.
All right, here we go. I am going to go with Damian Lillard as a pay-up option. He's only projected for right around 20% ownership, so it's not like he's unowned or anything like that. But Damian Lillard, if we knew that he was going to be in, no issues at all, I think that he would otherwise be a pretty chalk option on the slate. He's been crushing this year in games that Giannis has not played in. We've seen big games as of late as well. Giannis is out through the All-Star break. So I really like getting to Damian Lillard, particularly on DraftKings. He's still a good option on FanDuel, although not quite as strong. Eric had touched on that before. We're going over our favorite FanDuel payups. We don't get the 3-point bonus. But Damian Lillard's been a triple-double threat in a lot of these games in the absence of Giannis as well. So give me Damian Lillard, who I think should be by far the most rostered spend up on the slate, and he's only right around 20% owned. So give me Damian Lillard as my nuke of the night, Eric.
I love that too. I mean, I was torn. I had so many guys. I'm still going to play some Nurk. I know that he's like 3-4%. I'm going to play him. I want to play, a lot of these guys. But if Dame plays, I'm 100% with you. Him and Steph Curry going back and forth. I mean, this just makes a lot of sense. I'm nervous. In the event that you have Dame, though, ruled out, that ends up being a position that you can move to a lot of different places. I mean, you've got Kyrie Irving at 9K. That's the easy swap to go a little bit later. There's just built-in swappability by playing him there. So I love that. Shout out. Talked about him on FanDuel. DK, he looks even better.
Let's see what we have for a super chat that just came in from Connor. Connor wants to know, do I absolutely need anyone from the first games in DK Cash, or would you wait? Poole and Franz getting ownership look like good plays. All right, so the games that are locking right at 7 p.m. Eastern time, Minnesota, Cleveland, Spurs, Washington, Atlanta, Orlando. And let me just double check. Yeah, so we clarified DK Cash. Yeah, I think you absolutely have to play Jordan Poole in DraftKings Cash.
Yeah, you're playing Jordan Poole right now at the current ownership.
Yeah, Jordan Poole, absolutely. Play him in cash. Here are the guys right now, because I saw this was in Discord as well. DK Cash game plays. Guys you absolutely need to have in cash games, in my opinion. Terry Rozier, Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, Jordan Poole. I'll add Derek White to that as well. Those 5.
Yep. Perfect.
And all right, nothing else from the super chats. Digging into the Discord here. Let's get back to Ethan's question. He wants to know, who do we like most that's under 10% owned, Eric? Under 10% owned. Now we've got this updated ownership info.
Let me pull it up here. Rich also said something in the chat where there was a report that came out that said Yusuf Nurkic might not even play today, which would be really bad for me and what I'm looking at in my lineups at the moment. But let's see. Looking through the ownership side by side.
I'm going to add something because I already had a guy that I liked that I was going to bring up here. Musa Diabate. He's proven to be a really good fantasy producer. And with the overall role of Nurkic in flux, especially going forward, I mean, once Mark Williams is back, assuming he ends up joining the team again, I just don't see a way that Nurkic, unless there's injuries, is going to be playing big minutes regularly. I like playing a low-owned Diabate today. And you get the chance that Nurkic is either not playing or a very small part of the rotation. You get 30-plus minutes from Diabate. I think he's under-owned by the field considering his price point.
I think that's a great shout out. Just having a tough time coming through what our update is here. I think Domantas Sabonis looks pretty darn good. Sub 5% on Domantas Sabonis. If anything happens to Gafford, and we know Gafford gets ripped off the floor in like these 4 or 5 minute stints that Jason Kidd is obsessed with, Sabonis isn't leaving the floor in a lot of those situations. And they do have a true big in Jonas Valanciunas now that'll back him up for 15-ish minutes. But Domantas Sabonis, 33 minutes, 34 minutes a night here going forward. He had been pretty low down in terms of minutes, 31, 32, 29 in 3 of his last 5. Kind of kept his fantasy outcomes pretty muted. And playing alongside a Zach LaVine probably doesn't help things out too much either. But triple-double upside, absolutely nobody there. PJ Washington out. I'm done talking.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you were talking for another like 30 seconds, I was going to cut you off and say like, hey, we got to talk about PJ Washington being out. PJ Washington is out. Max Christie is available to play. Dante Exum, he is available to play. So we didn't get all the guys out for Dallas, but like you said before, Eric, we only need one of these guys to be out. We did get one of them. PJ Washington's out. What do you make of this news? I know you talked about it a little bit before, but now we've got some confirmation.
Yeah, I really like Najee Marshall. Obviously, I think he's probably the guy who slides into that starting unit unless they want to go to Max Christie, who's in as well. That is in play. Did we get Dante Exum news? Oh, available to play.
Yeah, he's in.
There. That was the last one that came through as well. But the big thing for me is like PJ Washington has been playing a different role on this team. And right before Anthony Davis got there, the rebounding chances were out of control for PJ Washington here of late. I think that's only has to help Daniel Gafford. They have no support behind him there. They had been playing some PJ Washington there at the 5. They can go OMP. They can do Kyler Kelly showed up for the 1 game and 1 game only basically. But Daniel Gafford, you put him in for 30 plus minutes going up against Sabonis here. And Sabonis has a crazy rebound rate, 22%, plays pretty decent minutes. Jonas Valanciunas behind him too. Not the easiest guy to snag rebounds from, but Daniel Gafford just has proven that he can do this in this kind of a spot. He's that mid-range 7K centerpiece. He looks really, really good because, I mean, they just don't have any other big outside of him to play.
Yeah, and then especially on FanDuel, I think he's the best overall looking center option. Before we got that super chat from Dustin Stringer, and I was going through some of the FanDuel exposures I had running our stuff through our sims here, and as is, Gafford was the center I liked the most. And that was when PJ Washington was assumed to be in. So I'm rerunning lineups now, but he's only going to look even better now. Let's see when we have any sort of projection updates. We'll definitely bring that back to you guys with PJ Washington being out now for the Dallas Mavericks. And then also starting lineup for Dallas probably isn't going to come out until after we get to lock. But here's the good news. Josh and I are going to be on playback in 10 minutes. And you guys could join us over there to keep the party going and still be updated on any kind of news or information that ends up breaking post-lock. Some other questions that we got here from Discord, Eric. The next one here, it is from Einsteinium wants to know, what are our thoughts on Cam Johnson tonight? He's $6,200, price down from where he was earlier in the year, and he typically plays mid-30s minutes. One thing to keep in mind, though, with Cam Johnson is he has been out for a lot over the course of the last, how long now? He played 30 minutes last game, 25 minutes the game before. I kind of think he's probably capped around 30-ish minutes. There's not a ton of reason for the Nets to push him to play big minutes when he's been in and out of the lineup over the last month and a half. So Cam Johnson, I'm rerunning those lineups right now. I don't think he's somebody who's going to land in much for me.
No, and D'Lo being in as well. I mean, if D'Lo had been out, I think we would have been talking about him. Keon Johnson, should we be playing more? It's also a Brooklyn team that has gone from around 96 possessions per 48 minutes, which is already the slowest in the NBA, to the last 5, 93 possessions per 48 minutes. We're talking as slow as humanly possible over on NBA.com. So I'm just looking at Brooklyn is not a complete write-off. I'm sure I'll get a little bit intermixed, but I can't imagine 6,200 Cam Johnson with all the other small forward, power forward plays we have, and now Najee Marshall added, Sam Hauser coming up. It's just really hard to make way for Cam Johnson.
We also got COVID Bryant the second wants to know, what are our thoughts on my pal, Jimmy Butler? So yeah, Jimmy Butler in a new situation now with Golden State. Not somebody who I'm getting to in lineups today. I am not on Jimmy Butler today.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah, other guys to pay up for that I think are looking better. Also, this is overall just a worse fantasy situation from in Golden State playing alongside Steph Curry than it was when he was playing in Miami. We have a question here from Perrin. We've got Perrin in our Discord channel wants to know, what are we doing with Kuzma and Portis' exposure on DraftKings? I'm playing a lot of them.
Yeah, dude, it's just absurd. And if Dame's out, it's absurder. It's just going to get stupid.
Yeah, I'm playing a lot of them. That's the answer. Between the two of them, I'm getting to a lot more of Kuzma. Kuzma's in nearly all of my lineups, whereas Bobby Portis is just in more than half of them. Both of them look really good. I prefer Kuzma if you're just looking to play one of the chalk options. Relative to their ownership, are you also, I know you said you're playing a lot of them, but are you loading up on them relative to what their ownership is and getting overweight to them?
Bobby Portis, I am. Kyle Kuzma, I'm neutral.
Okay. Next question we have here is a super chat from Bobby Bees. Wants to know, what are our thoughts on Poole now? Nothing's really changed for me on Jordan Poole. I think he's one of the better looking guard plays on the slate. Nothing's happened to change that over the course of the show.
Nope, same.
And then we've got a question from M Grizzly. Wants to know, who are we boosting? Who are we boosting right now, Eric? So for me, the one that makes the most sense is going to be some of the guys from, well, Jokic for one, just in the event that you potentially get Michael Porter Jr. out. And then also just trying to make sure that I get some exposure to the Dallas guys heading into lock now that PJ Washington is out.
There you go.
Now we've got Cream wants to know, is Kyrie going under-owned?
Not really.
Let's see.
Again, I'm not worried about him because I just will turn Dame into him. If Dame's out, I'm sure I'll have to get to some, but I doubt he'll be anything that I care that much about.
Kyrie's ownership is also going to come up a little bit because of PJ Washington being out. But I mean, you also got Kyrie is 9K over on DraftKings. You got Kyrie over on FanDuel is $8,700, but also nearly 20% owned. I don't know. I don't have like a massive Kyrie stand. I don't think that he is over or under owned in any kind of particular way. I'm right in line with the field on him. Next question here. We'll try to get to all of these really quick before lock. Sniffs 1, 2, 3, 4. People sleeping on Keon Johnson today? No, I think they should be sleeping on Keon Johnson.
Yeah, they should fall asleep to Keon Johnson.
If he's in a lineup or two, that's fine. Don't play him in single entry or anything like that. Next question is from, hey, I'm Drew, wants to know, who are the DK cash game plays, and wants to know if that was answered earlier. Was answered earlier before, but it doesn't mean we can't touch on it again here. Cash game plays, Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, Terry Rozier. Those are the ones who I absolutely think that you must be playing for this slate. And let's see what else has changed from before. Yeah, Terry Rozier. I can't remember if I said him there. So anyway, Kuzma, Portis, Poole, Rozier, and Derek White. Those are the five for me.
Sound great.
Next question is M Grizzly wants to know, what is our max exposure for the early locking games? I think I have Jordan Poole in about a third of lineups.
Yeah, let me finish it up here. I'm just waiting for it to compile and finish up for me, and then I will tell you.
Yeah, so we've got Atlanta, Orlando, Spurs, Washington, Minnesota, Cleveland. Yeah, for me, it's Jordan Poole being in about a third of lineups.
Muhammad Gay. Yeah, I've got him in 40% of lineups right now. Just finished.
Okay. Yeah, I've got I don't have quite that much of him. I have 27%, but so I have a little bit more Jordan Poole, but Muhammad Gay also looks pretty good. Anything else that's standing out to you from your early, the exposure you have from the early games?
Yeah, I'm kind of going through and seeing if there's anything else that stands out. I don't have, okay, so I got Jordan Poole in 26% of lineups. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. Gay, I ended up with 44% of lineups. I'm okay with that too. Like those two, I'm okay with. If it weren't like a flat 3K situation, I'd be on whatever. But I think that, do I have anything else early? Carlton, Carrington, I have 8% of. I don't even know why, but I do. So that's cool. Okongwu, I think is interesting. I have him in 10%. I'm going back through the other direction. Rashawn Holmes in 6% of lineups. Yeah, pretty limited amount of other pieces. So I'm just finishing this up now and uploading, and we're ready to rock.
Yeah, the other guy who looks good from the early games as well is oh no, never mind. That's a 7:30 game, not 7. I was going to say Nick Smith Jr., but never mind. Don't have to worry about him because he's in the 7:30 game, not the 7 p.m. games. Any other final thoughts on your lineups as you're updating them? Anything in your final run that was different than maybe what you were expecting?
Nothing too crazy. Obviously, I boosted some of the Dallas guys just to get them intermixed a little bit more with some of the early exposure, and it's pushing the early exposure down, as you might expect. We got that ownership run a little bit like 5 minutes ago or what it was. So I'm kind of finishing out. I'm just trying to get rid of this Carrington. I don't really want him, if I'm being honest. They have enough bodies there today. I don't think it should matter all that much. So I'm doing that, uploading here. And I am done. Yeah, nothing else crazy.
All right. And then over on playback, Josh and I'll talk a little bit more about the Dallas situation. We're definitely waiting on a starting lineup there. Our assumption right now in our data is we got 32 minutes in for Max Christie. He's not the best fantasy producer, though. I know he's a little bit hyped right now because he's gotten off to a good start with Dallas. He's not projecting all that well for us. Dante Exum now looks serviceable as a value option with him being confirmed in. The best overall looking play from Dallas, Eric Sky. Najee Marshall got in for 27.5 fantasy points at $4,800. Small forward, power forward eligibility. Pretty clearly the guy to be getting to. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Any final thoughts for the people before we go and head on over to playback?
Yeah, just head to playback. We had like 3.5K people hanging out post Super Bowl. Hit the like button. You guys are the best, but go watch playback. There are going to be starting lineups coming in. There's going to be changes, late swaps, such a big part of the process here. And we have the great tools to help you guys out with it. Jump over there. I'm out of here. We'll see you here tomorrow.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Jordan has, if you guys haven't seen the link, you should be able to spot it. It's not that hard to find in the YouTube chat right there. So click on one of those links, join Josh and I over in playback. If you aren't joining us, you're making a big mistake, but have a good night.